right, good afternoon to y'all. Call to order the regular meeting of the Tiki Island City Council on Tuesday, April 16th, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the Public Safety Building. Roll call: Telchik here, Neblett
Here.
Cunningham
Here.
Kaufman
Here.
Scott
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Would y'all please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Citizen comments. Comments limited to 2 minutes. Excuse me. Citizen comments. Comments limited to 2 minutes. Must have filled out sign-in sheet. All right. Consent agenda. All items marked with a single asterisk on consent agenda are considered routine by the City Council and will be acted upon in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the council member requests them. A, approval of the minutes of March 19, 2024 regular meeting. B, Secretary Treasurer report payment of bills for March 2024. C, Investments Officer's report for March 2024. Can I get a motion to approve or discuss?
Motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Abstain, I wasn't here. Oh, this is a March meeting.
Oh, okay.
That's right. Warren.
Okay. We have one abstain. Mayor and Alderman's report. Reports are limited to the community interest as defined in Texas Local Government Code, Section 551.0415. No action will be taken. Mayor's report, we have completed the breakwater. Alan now has the thumb drive with all the closeout documents, and we'll go over that here in a little bit. Alan will go over some of that in the report. Alderman's report. Neblett.
Nothing to report.
Kaufman.
No report.
Cunningham.
No report.
Scott.
No report.
What? Walker.
Just a topic of general interest, the Garden Club plant sale is this Saturday at Tiki Plaza. Come get lots of plants, and golf cart rally tickets go on sale that day for the Memorial Day weekend golf cart rally.
Thank you. Reports and presentation. Fire Department report. Steve.
Yes, for the month, there were 8 EMS calls, 1 fire, which was a vehicle fire on I-45, 4 mutual aids given, 4 canceled en route for a total of 17. And I think I mentioned this last month, but we're continuing to have trouble with getting mutual aid to Bayou Vista because we can't get there. So we've had to, the good news is they can get here easily
Right.
if we need aid, but we're having trouble getting there, so we've changed our process. So we're only going where there's a major medical need, where the paramedic who's here is needed. That and fires. Everything else we're going to stop for a while because the last time one of the guys went up about 4 in the afternoon, it took him 25 minutes to get to Bayou Vista. That's it.
All right, thank you. Police report.
Calls for the month of March: 1 animal stray, 23 agencies assist, 1 assist citizen, 1 criminal mischief, 4 fire EMS, 2 loud music, 1 suspicious circumstances, 2 suspicious persons, 1 threat, 1 traffic accident, 2 traffic complaints in the city, 1 trespassing, 15 traffic citations, 25 traffic warnings, a total of 47 calls.
Thank you. Building inspector's report.
11 new homes currently under construction, a new house permit issued, 2 new house plans under review. Permits issued 45, closed 77. 3 plats, 1 recorded, 1 submitted for review. It's on the agenda for tonight. Marina bulkhead progress. Business license renewals and inspections nearing completion. Non-compliance ordinance issues. I met with the owner on a project with their engineer and attorneys. And 6 red tag notices issued, 2 bulkhead notices, 15 site reviews, 3 by complaint. Efforts continue for ordinance violations for substandard non-compliant conditions. Ordinance reviews continue. LPG renewals inspections are underway. One court case pending. And we were successful in getting some trailers towed off vacant lot. This has been the first time in many years, so. Business as usual.
All right, thank you. Ordinance Review Committee.
Can I ask him a question?
Yes, you can.
It's not on your report exactly, but I know we talked about this before with the bridge and the load limit. A couple of weekends ago, I think they poured on Neptune. I saw across from my house, so I got curious, went over there, and he said they had 14 trucks, the guy I was talking to, and they were carrying like 10,000 pounds each or something of concrete, or, sorry, I wrote it down, he told me, 10 yards, sorry. How do we police that, or do we on the weekends? Do we not know? I was just curious more than anything. Because it sounded like they're over the load limit.
10
Well,
yard,
now it's 68,000 pounds.
I remember something like 8 yards or whatever. I don't
but
know.
now it went to 68 though, and I think that covers it at 10.
It does cover the 10?
Yeah.
Okay, that was my question. I couldn't remember what we talked about. A lot of trucks, that's why I was curious.
That was a big pour.
It was, yeah, a lot.
That house ain't gonna tip over easy.
I don't think so. All right, thank you.
Ordinance Review Committee.
Okay, there's three items on the agenda tonight. They're HI and K, which is one's the definition 6.1, the other's 682, which is a bill line, setbacks to the side and front bill line, and the other one's the new swimming pool ordinance we look to adopt. So I'll just leave that like that, and when it comes up, if y'all have any questions, we'll answer it when it's brought up with your on the agenda.
All right, thank you. Emergency Management Report.
Let's see, so last week I took a class at Houston, drama class, to start working on a program for the city. We utilize PD, fire, emergency management, public works, whenever we need to. So it's in the infancy stages. Next week, up to my week 3 of number 4 of my advanced academy. May 7th, hurricane readiness for coastal communities in Lake City. May 8th, I got HERVAC training, half-day training. Basically, as a National Weather Service has modeling functions, that's our access to those functions. So we can figure out, can give the best information as far as should we go, should we stay, so what are the issues becoming up the street. And other than that, hurricane preparedness events, May 11th. Be up here from 11 to 1. We have
On date.
Saturday, May 11th. It's posted on the calendar. I'll have a flyer posted on the website as well. From our fire department, Galveston County, EMC, here, state will be represented, and National Weather Service. That's it.
All right, thank you. Animal Control Report is in the packet. All right, general business and action items. A, discuss and take possible action to approve ordinance 04-2403, Chapter 2, Article 5, Section 2-104, boards, committees, commissions, and authorities. Can I get a motion to discuss?
Motion to discuss.
Okay. Go ahead, Patty.
You beat me to it.
Go.
So,
Basically what
where
it
did
is,
this come from?
this is just putting a board together for an ordinance review committee, so there's rules and regulations, is all it is. And we're gonna put it in an ordinance, so it'll be official as an ordinance review committee. And then we're gonna go down, well, after that, then we'll name the chairman of it, or whoever's gonna be a board. But it just gives rules and regulations for them to go by, that's all.
So I have a few questions.
Go ahead.
Okay, first of all, I find it a little conflicting that, like a typical racing chart, there's like 2 people in this that are basically both responsible and accountable, the mayor and this alderman liaison, which is a new position. Why, that seems inefficient. Why wouldn't it be one or the other?
If we don't have one, then I'll fill in on it. But what difference does it matter if there's two to go over?
Because the way it's written, it looks like you need both people's approval to do something, to move forward. And it doesn't seem like that should be the case. And any alderman
Well,
should be
also-
able to bring forward, basically, we have a problem with an issue. Because typically, we'll get a complaint from a resident who says, I had this ordinance has come up and I don't understand how this works. That's typically when an ordinance gets reviewed, right? Is when somebody has a complaint about it or we find something that's clearly not working. We'll see
Yeah.
go through it and do that.
But the ordinance review committee, as you know, is gonna be, they will be given the ordinances. We're not gonna, the ordinance review committee is not gonna go through the book and just pick out ordinances.
Yeah,
It's
I
only gonna be
understand.
for things that we're having multiple problems with that we need to fix that ordinance. So we put me on there also, or whoever else is the mayor on there to be in there to overlook it, so there's not more than one, that there's more than one decision if needed to do it, because sometimes somebody might want to put something on there and it really isn't necessary to do it. If we have one or two complaints out of the whole thing over a couple-year period, we don't need to look at that ordinance, that's just a couple of things that happen.
Yeah, totally agree with you
But-
on that.
but
I mean,
if I might say,
these need to be
it's-
ordinances that come up that either like we've had citizen comments or we've noticed an issue of something that comes up and it's like, this is inconsistent.
Well, I don't understand what we're arguing about, who's on there.
Let me
Why,
jump in.
why wouldn't
I
we
can
just
help.
have, why wouldn't an alderman liaison be part of the committee? Why does there need to be another step? Because you're basically instituting a multi-step process to do this, and some of the language in here bothers me, because it looks like there's an ultimate trump by the mayor or the alderman liaison to have the ability to trump, deny, or alter language. Is that really how we want this to work?
Yeah, because we're elected.
No, but it's not us. It's the alderman, it's the mayor, or the alderman.
What they're complaining
liaison.
about is the mayor being on
The
there.
first time we would see it would be when it goes on the agenda and we get our package on a Thursday. It also says everything essentially goes through the alderman liaison to basically get there. And part of this I don't have issues with, because I think it makes sense to have a process. I don't want to be playing a whack-a-mole with ordinances, and it seems like we've been doing that a bit. And I don't want to have competing ordinance proposals that come forward. I like that, but I think it's difficult to have a process that has two people that share a responsibility.
Well, it says or, every single place it says mayor
Or.
or alderman.
It doesn't say
Every
mayor
single-
and alderman.
And if it
Alderman
doesn't,
liaison, mayor or
or
alderman
alderman liaison, which is
Yeah.
one of the 5 people, the idea being that why do you need to get 5 people involved on a daily basis? This would be like during the time when you're collecting information or whatever, then the ordinance review committee would report back to somebody on this committee, on this board, rather than going, and it says or, mayor or, so the communications could go either to the liaison or to the mayor, either one.
And the mayor is the executive officer of the city, so I don't see any problem with having the mayor on there.
And it's somewhere, I'm looking, I don't know why.
It's
I'm
something
trying to
was brought
find-
up, Steve didn't, said that he didn't think the mayor should be on there either. But this is a committee that's appointed by the mayor and picked that we started, and that's the reason we're putting this in an ordinance, so they'll have the rules and regulations to follow. So mayor or alderman liaison, I don't understand what the problem is.
Can I jump in? May I?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so if I'm Steve and I'm head of the ordinance review committee, right, who do I report to? Do I report to the, it's gonna be Alan, I'm sure. Do I report to the alderman liaison, or do I report to the mayor? Because.
They will report to the alderman liaison if we have one.
Okay.
But not all the time you might have one.
Okay.
You might not be able to take the job if I assign that to you, or available to be here at that time, because everybody has jobs or whatever. At that point in time, then it would fall back to me, or whoever's acting mayor at that point in time.
So let's walk through that a little bit further. So if we pass this ordinance and you decide not to appoint a liaison that's an alderman to that committee, then you're the person.
If we
right?
can't find one to take it, the intent
say
of
you
this
can't-
whole thing is, that's correct.
Let's
If
play it out.
nobody will take it straight up,
It's the
Thunder
mayor.
travels, you're busy, he's doing something, or somebody's doing something, then I'll be the liaison for the committee.
Well, it doesn't say liaison, it says you'll be the guy.
So I'll be the guy.
It says-
I'll basically take the alderman liaison's position.
So if Hunter's mayor, I don't see a conflict of interest, but if you're mayor, I see a conflict of interest. You're a builder on the island, we're talking about ordinance review committee. and the building inspector who was heavily involved in that. I have a problem with that.
Well,
What about-
Well, I mean,
hold on a
I
minute.
drive a truck down the main road, the ordinance committee doesn't just do building, it does everything else.
But it does a lot of building.
Okay, but
Pretty
here's the
much
next
everything
thing I
we
gotta
talked
say.
about is
Hey, let me ask you this, Gary.
Okay.
The ordinance review committee has 2 builders on it, and nobody that's not a
I mean,
builder.
you got no citizens.
They're citizens.
But they're
not
also
sitting-
builders.
They're not sitting in your chair.
But also,
and
hey,
governing
also,
the
I
item.
don't own that construction company.
I've heard that too many times, and that's, I'm not even gonna say it, because it wouldn't record well. That's a bad excuse, right? At the end of the day, I agree with Patty. I think having an ordinance for this committee is a good idea. I think having them report to one person is a good idea. I think that should be an alderman liaison. I think that's a good idea. I think it shouldn't be 2 people. If I ran the business and told everybody, hey, you report to me or him, whoever you decide to go to that day is in a good mood, go talk to that person, they'll tell you what to do. I don't think that's a good way either. I also
So
don't
what
think-
you're saying,
I
let me
also
just
don't
ask
think
you
that-
this,
I
so
think-
what you're saying in
I'm not
open
finished
public,
talking.
what you're saying
I'm not
that you.
finished talking.
No,
I know, I'm not finished talking, so let me finish talking, and then you can tell me what you think I'm saying,
Okay.
okay? So at the end of the day, if she's the mayor, he's the mayor, I'm the mayor, and we have nothing to do with building on the island, okay. But I think there should be an asterisk, because I think if the mayor is a builder on the island, there's a conflict of interest, and I don't think you want a conflict of interest to be seen by folks, nor do I. I think it should be pretty clean that it's one of us at the table they report to. And if we're out of town or unavailable, maybe they report to another alderman. Maybe they're gonna have a committee chair if it's Steve, they're gonna have somebody that's gonna run it. But I just don't think it should be you.
Yeah, you know, if you play the devil's advocate, I hear what you're saying, but if you play the devil's advocate, and we have 2 builders that are on the ordinance committee, and part of their responsibility is to overlook building codes, and there is some opportunity for them to rig the building codes in their favor as builders, so they can run the price up on their future jobs. Who's gonna see that better than somebody that's building?
Hey, we're all gonna see it at some point, right? It's
I wouldn't see it. They could do things that I would never catch, because I'm not in business.
I'm not accusing anybody of being dishonest, him as well. I'm just saying it doesn't look right, right? I just don't think it looks right. This says that you can have an unlimited number, it can be 1 person on the committee or more than 1. It just says you have to be a Tiki Island resident. We have to have
Right.
2 builders that do it, so they have more knowledge than other folks.
Mhm.
Daryl should be involved, he's got a lot of knowledge, right?
Mhm.
I don't have a lot of knowledge of building, so I shouldn't be there. I'd be happy to sit on it if I needed to. But I just don't think it looks right if it's you, Goldie. I'm just being completely
Well, you just
honest.
said somebody that needs a lot of knowledge, who would have more?
No, we have 2 people that have.
I'm asking who would be having a lot of knowledge more that would be, that could help them on the ordinance review committee if the ordinance was going.
So may I make a suggestion? When I first read this, I agree with principle, I like the idea in principle, I'm with you, I agree with that. I have no issue with the mayor appoints the alderman liaison. As mayor, yes, you know, you are the executor, each of us needs to have responsibilities that we do for the village, for this community. So, you know, one of us is gonna step up and take this job because that's what you did when you signed up to do this. So I'm telling you with this. If you truly want this to be transparent with no conflict of interest, don't let anybody who's a builder be on the ordinance review committee.
I agree with you 100% on that.
Yep, they can consult with builders, because if you're not an expert, what you do, you go find an expert and you ask questions. But don't actually make them part of the review committee. I think Daryl needs to be on there because he enforces these ordinances and he's gonna know if what they're coming up with is wrong. You can have people that are knowledgeable experts that they can go to and say, this is what we're thinking, we got this complaint, yada, yada, yada. But if none of the builders on the island are part of the official review committee, then we have no conflict of interest. And I think that's a way to do it that goes to the letter of this. An alderman steps up in his liaison, I get that. Any of us as alder people, to use a generic term, can bring forward a complaint because citizens have complained to us, because that happens. You, in your role, appoint that person that is the liaison, and we keep it clean. Because otherwise, if we're gonna be in this, everybody arguing about conflict of interest, well, then let's just break that completely. And you Goldie, come up with a list of, here are contractors on the island that you can use from a consulting basis if you have a technical question. So put together experts, or we go to Daryl, and he goes out, and he consults with technical experts to get answers to the questions. That's at least cleaner.
Okay.
Can
Y'all
I
want to
interject
do it that way?
Goldie for a second, please? Can I say something?
Oh, yes.
So,
No.
when I met with,
I don't think he's allowed
Anyone can talk that he recognizes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
When we met last week, the first thing you told me, the reason behind this, or excuse, whatever you want to call it, was because I was contacting Bridget, asking her questions about ordinances and the way we were doing things here, which she was very helpful, I appreciate that. But your point was, every time we call her, ask her a question, she charges for it. Well, of course she does, she's an attorney, that's what she does for a living.
That's correct.
So, Bridget, do you charge any different fees if I call or Hunter was the liaison? What difference does it make? I mean, we've been doing this for 2 years with zero problems. And all of a sudden, after 2 years, we have a problem where we have to have ordinance. And
So you have a
I like-
problem with rules and regulations? Hold on,
Let me
man. Don't
finish.
go
I'm
down.
still talking, Goldie, let me
But
finish.
everybody keeps saying that, but let me just tell you, what we talked about is, the way you're making this come across is, me and you talked, what you're saying is true, but I said that before we call Bridget and go into any, getting paid on it, that the ordinance review committee needed to put together the ordinance with their recommendation, bring it to the Board of Aldermen, let the Board of Aldermen add their comments to it. At that point in time, you go back and put their comments in it, and then call Bridget, instead of calling Bridget with you and Freddie's comments, and then bringing it to the board, and the board makes comments, and then we go back to Bridget again. We were
It's
cutting
not-
one step off.
It's not comments, it's questions, and you do that as you write the ordinance.
Well, comments
There's
or
a lot
questions,
easier
you
to do it as
still
you
charge.
write the ordinance.
Well,
I mean, we've
the
had
ordinance,
zero problem with this at all.
We have had problems with this, ever since we've been back and forth on every ordinance all the time.
Is it my fault?
No, I'm just saying we go back and forth. Y'all put together something, bring it up here, the village looks at it, Steve, Gary, somebody has a comment, or Patty has a comment, we have to go back again to the ordinance review committee. Once we get all the comments done, then the questions that can be sent to her and do it at one time instead of calling the attorney multiple times for one ordinance. Is the only thing me and you talked about.
And what difference does it make? We get the job done. Is it gonna break the village if I talk to her and get questions and have it all ironed out, how y'all want it?
After the aldermen look at it and then put their comments in, then you call them. I told you that.
We've been working on this 6.82 goalie since last freaking October. It's ridiculous. A fifth grade class could do better.
Okay, I'm done.
well, if I might, if Bridget, you might be able to fill this in better, but the so-called ordinance review committee didn't technically exist. I mean, the village can't just have a group of private citizens that's called a committee because they haven't been officially appointed. Goldie just called some people and said, hey, help me write some ordinances. He called me about 4 years ago, was it? And said, hey, you want to write some ordinances, which is fine. It was just an informal group of private citizens that were using Microsoft Word. And the original idea was just go in and pull the ordinance and change a few words because we decided the speed limit needed to be 30 instead of 20 or whatever. And then, it existed that way. And so, and that kind of came back to contacting the attorney. Then you got a group of private citizens who don't officially exist are contacting the village's attorney and getting opinions, essentially legal opinions. So that's kind of where the train was running off the track. And so this ordinance will make an official committee under whatever section it's called, boards, committees, commissions, and authorities. And so it's being appointed now. It's like, now it's official. Now it's a real committee that functions on behalf of this board, I guess, in the village.
Yeah.
So that's what this document's all about.
Now,
And
let me,
I guess you could go through and cross out, other than the mayor shall appoint the liaison, you could cross out everywhere it says mayor or alderman. The idea would be that the alderman liaison would be someone who's up to speed on what the board wants. You know, we don't want that ordinance changed, or we do want it changed. And if we do want it changed, and I could picture that happening in this meeting. Like, I'll give you an example. In January, I brought to this meeting, I said, we need a swimming pool ordinance. Because we're building pools like crazy, and they're in front of the line, behind the line. And Bridget, during the meeting, she thumbs through her book and goes, hey, according to 4858 or whatever, the state law says we already have an swimming pool ordinance. And so that's how that came about, and that's to me, and then of course, then February, I brought back some more information that the 2018 ordinance technically did not include permitting, and I've got some other information, we'll talk about that later. But anyway, that's kind of how this came about, was the fact that this creates an official committee with certain members appointed by the mayor and approved by resolution, and Bridget was the one that said that we really have to do it by resolution instead of just picking somebody at the Valero station to be on the committee.
I have no issue with having a defined process. I'm a big fan of defined processes. I don't have an issue with the mayor appointing one of the aldermen to take responsibility for this. I think that's a good idea. And I think that's where you stop, is there. And then that alderman liaison is working with the committee, again, if we truly want to go no conflict of interest, so we can quit doing a pissing match, which is what we're doing, then we need to have private citizens beyond this that are not in the construction business, at least with the building heads. And then the rest of this process seems reasonable. I still have a few issues with some of the language, because I think in some cases it's vague, about you make comments back. Is that ultimate Trump? I shouldn't use the word Trump. Ultimate rejection authority, whatever you want to call it, ultimate edit authority, you know. That literally kind of lies with city council to do that, so we need to say it ahead of time. So I was a little concerned, let me finish. I was a little concerned about the language that says, you know, it's reviewed and approved by the mayor, the alderman liaison, everything, before it actually ever kind of gets out there. But mayor appoints the person, one of us. Committee's made up of people that are not in the construction business, but you do need to put together a list of experts that they can go to questions with. Just like, I'm not gonna write insurance policy, I'd be an idiot to do that. I would go ask Gary. So I think if there's people they can talk to, then that works.
That would be number 3. It says, don't communicate outside the village. And we have a deal that says for aldermen that we're not supposed to go talk to the Galveston City Council or the newspaper. That's in our, I forget what we call it, our operating procedures.
Yeah.
So and it was reviewed last June, and we're not supposed to go out and post things on social media and all that. So this would fall under that. The ordinance review committee should not be going over to the Galveston City Council and asking questions about how we should do some ordinance.
Right.
The other thing, though, about what I was going to say about the review and comment is that, and this is just my personal opinion, I guess, is I don't want the ordinance review, I don't want the tail wagging the dog. I don't want the ordinance review committee to be the people in this village who write up ordinances and then bring them here to the village, to the board, and everybody just kind of goes, well, it's a pretty crummy ordinance, but what else are we going to do? Let's approve it, you know? And so I just want to make sure, I want that it's not the tail wagging the dog. It's a multi-step process. The review committee goes out and checks a few things and decides that, you know, we need to delete this paragraph and add this one. And then it comes back to the alderman liaison and says, this is what we think we ought to do. And then that person kind of, in theory, would know what the thinking is among the board and say, I don't think the board's going to go for that. I think we ought to maybe change this sentence. So it'd be kind of a back and forth. And then hopefully by the time it gets to the board, it's been back and forth a few times between the ordinance review committee and the liaison. And then when it comes back this direction, it either goes to be approved by the attorney or it gets reverted back for more comments to the committee. That's how that was going to work.
Goldie, can I say one more thing, please? You remember 2 years ago, I'm the one that asked you if you would form this committee to begin with. I was the alderman liaison when I was an alderman. Alan Scott and Chad Prince was on the committee. When he got elected, you told us we could do that. We just flopped spots. That's all we did. Chad Prince stepped down, Freddie Carmichael's on there. So that's how this committee got to where it is. So, and I think what everybody sitting up there is missing, it don't matter what we say as a committee. All of y'all have the final say in whatever we do. We can't approve anything. what we bring to you are suggestions what we think would work out here. And what we look at, is it easy for the residents to follow, and is it easy for Daryl to write the permit and inspect it? That's the 4 things we look at, and that's all we do. Y'all make the final decision on everything. We don't have a say in nothing. We write the ordinance. We wrote the swimming pool ordinance. If you don't like the swimming pool ordinance, you vote it down and come back to the board and we start over. That's how it works.
Or if they vote it down, it doesn't go back.
You know, the whole idea behind the committee to begin with is so you don't have a mayor, you don't have an alderman, you don't have a city secretary, and you don't have a building inspector going rogue on you trying to write ordinances by themselves. That was the whole idea behind it, where you had multiple people on there to bring these things, ideas forward to the board of aldermen, and let y'all make the decision. That's the whole idea behind the process. And it's worked fine for 2 years, and all of a sudden there's a problem. So I don't know what to tell you.
Well, if we're gonna have a committee, we gotta have, it's gotta be official.
So can I take a,
And again, Hunter, I don't agree with guidelines. I said, I don't have a problem with guidelines at all.
Right.
I just don't like the word mayor being on it. I told him that the other day, so.
okay, can I take a run at this?
Go
So,
ahead.
this lays out pretty good in my opinion. If you take the word mayor out, no offense to you intended, right? And you have an alderman liaison that does that. You appoint the committee, you appoint the alderman liaison, let them be the go-between. If there's an issue that needs to come to this body, the alderman liaison would bring it to this body the way I read this, as
That's
it's written
correct.
today, right? And if Patty had an issue that she thought needed to be looked at by them, she would tell the alderman liaison, hey, I think this is something worth looking at. They would inform the committee. To me, that works super clean. It still comes back to this group. It also says here that you guys are going to communicate back and forth in writing. The alderman liaison is going to tell them in writing what they want them to work on, so that everybody's on the same page, and they're going to communicate back. And if they agree with it, it's going to go to legal counsel for the proper verbiage and come back to this board. If they don't agree with it, the alderman liaison, they're going to go back to that committee and work it out before it comes back to you all to go to legal counsel. And this group only sees it after all those things have been worked out.
That's correct.
I think this whole thing works fine. I just think you take out the mayor part, and it's not mayor or alderman liaison, it's just alderman liaison. I
And you
personally
appoint
feel
the
like,
alderman, mayor appoints the
of course,
alderman.
he appoints the
Yeah.
folks, and the only other suggestion I would make, and I'd meet you halfway on this one, Patty, is I think you gotta have at least one contractor on the committee. If you take 2 citizens that don't know anything about building ordinances and ask them to invite builders, and nobody shows up, I think it's gonna be a pretty long meeting, right? It would be like if you ask 2 citizens to sit down and, talk about insurance policies. Unless you bring a boring insurance agent into the group, they're just not gonna get very far unless they have some background in ordinances, right? And that's a special person. So I would say if you have at least one, you can have 2 or 3 citizens and 1 contractor. Somebody with some knowledge in that room to help direct them on what goes on. Or you have Daryl come into all the meetings who can give guidance as well. I would just suggest something like that for the citizens on the committee.
We'll do citizens on the committee and strike the mayor if y'all want.
One,
And
I would say no more than 1 general contractor.
That's why I think I said at least one, saying, however you want to write it, and then.
You can have one, or you don't have to have one, but at least one if you need one.
I think so. I just think it works that way, right? And I think it looks better from
Okay, well, let's just scratch
optics
this.
from the.
So we're
from
talking
this
about
group.
1 general contractor, 2 citizens, and the building inspector? Is that
I
an
mean,
actual?
Well, the
official?
building inspector probably wouldn't be involved in it at
No,
that
he's
time.
mentioned in here as needed, I think. It says in
Okay,
here
just
pretty
like
much
a
when you need
consultant.
help from city staff as needed. I think that's written in here already. Like I said, I don't think it's written wrong. I just think that this cleans it up and the optics are better. That's what I think.
Okay. Make-
And one place here, it says the members serve at the will of the mayor. You're wanting to scratch mayor. So who do the members serve at the will of the board?
I think
The
the
board.
mayor is still, the board, it can be the board, that's fine.
City
He can
council.
He
appoint
appoints them, so
He
they
appoints
serve
them.
at his pleasure.
It's
with
still
them.
at his will.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
still,
I'm fine.
and that was-
It's the way it's written. It says they serve at the will of the mayor.
I think that's
But
fine.
if he wants to change somebody out, there has to be a resolution brought to the board.
And
Bridget, is that correct?
Yeah, the way it would
Yeah.
effectively work is he would throw out the names and you guys would have the authority to
I've
appoint.
got no
Which
problem
is
with
fine.
that.
I think that's fine. They just don't
If,
report to him.
And if someone needs to be replaced, then he would recommend to us that they,
Yep.
Yes.
That-
Yeah.
they've gone rogue or
I
whatever.
got no problem with that either.
I agree with that.
So what are we suggesting taking out in items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, taking the word mayor out where it says mayor or alderman?
Yes.
I
It's
would,
just
that would be my
liaison.
suggestion. I do have a question for Bridget on language in section A. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. the committee shall not have meetings, comma, be subject to the Texas Open Meeting Act or be subject to the Texas Public Information Act. Shouldn't it be the committee shall not have meetings that are subject to the Texas Open Meetings Act? Or am I,
The goal is for Texas Open Meetings Act and the Public Information Act to not apply to
so
that.
should it say that are, because it says right now that the committee shall not have meetings, comma.
I see what you mean. I wanted not to keep going on each one.
I understand.
So, yeah,
That, I mean, if that are
shall not
within
have
there,
meetings,
that are, and then they wouldn't apply to their meetings. Is that right?
right. I would just do, the committee shall not have meetings, shall not be subject to the
Yeah.
Texas
Yeah,
Open Meetings
that's
Act,
fine.
and shall not be subject to, just add shall not be.
Shall not have meetings, so this committee is not gonna have a meeting? They're
They-
not gonna sit down and hash it out?
So, yeah, they're not gonna have official meetings under the Open Meetings Act.
They'll meet, they just won't be open.
They're not required to be open to the public.
So let's say that.
Yeah, because it sounds,
It actually,
So what, how does it
it
look
does,
now?
the sentence you wrote works. We don't have to keep repeating shall not, because it says, the committee shall not have meetings, comma, in quotes.
It would keep going.
Be subject to the Texas meeting, or be subject to the, so it's correct as it is. It says they shall not be these three things. You don't have to keep saying shall not 3 times.
How does it work now? Do you guys sit and have meetings? Or
Sure.
is it at home? Or
No, it's at
who would-
home or Daryl's office.
Okay,
Sure, they're gonna meet.
It's
Have
informal.
to.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's
Okay.
in-
How else are you gonna get anything?
well, by this, it's like all written back and forth.
but that's not,
That's not
in
what it's.
practice,
we don't
that's
want
not
that.
how it works.
Well, no,
So-
the request goes in writing, we want you to do this. And then it might be 6, 8 weeks before we hear back,
Mhm.
or the liaison hears back what they've come up with. So all during that time, it's churning through and they're calling each other and driving up down the road and.
Well, even if they're calling each other, I think that would probably, you and I can't call each other and talk about how we're gonna.
Okay, well, then let's just take out,
But when you get
Let's
into the,
just do-
don't you get into the problem of having to post the meetings?
right, if we're
We don't
subject
want-
to the Open Meeting Act, and we
we
don't
don't
want to
want
have
to
to
do
do that. So I think we can just leave it as, I didn't think they met, so that's why I included that first part. So we could just do, the committee should not be subject to the Texas Open Meetings Act or be subject to the Texas Public Information
That
Act.
would be,
Yeah, just take out
that
that.
would be
That's right.
cleaner.
Just they can
Take out
still
have
meet
meetings.
They can
together?
still
They
meet,
can
yeah,
still-
but because, yeah.
They're
The
not,
meetings do
they're
not
not
have to be
creating law.
open there, all they are is an
That would be
advisory
clear.
board, that's
They're
why.
an
these
advisory
things-
board, right.
Correct.
They should still meet, we encourage that.
Take 2 words out of have meetings and it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then I'm counting here, there's, so
No,
far.
because they'll just say, the
I'm
committee
up to
shall
1,
have
2,
meetings,
3, 4, 5.
but not be subjected to the Texas Open Meetings Act or the, just, you're
You
the
should
lawyer.
strike.
I'm like,
Yeah, the committee shall not be subject to the Texas Open Meetings Act
That's
or
all
be
it needs to
subject
be.
to the Texas PIA.
Yeah.
perfect.
One more little qualifying question, if I may. Under B, last sentence, village officers and employees shall act as an advisor to the committees as required.
That'd be
As
great.
required by, is it the Alderman liaison, is it by the committee chair? I mean, who would require that?
Probably either.
I don't think you really need to specify.
Yeah.
Just asking the question, make sure that if Daryl gets a phone call from Alderman liaison and saying, we need you at the meeting, and he says, well, I need to hear from Steve, or what, I just want to make sure we're all clear that, you know, it's required by somebody involved.
And only one last, on number 6, I've crossed out mayor or mayor or mayor or. Then it says, following review and approval by the mayor, the alderman, and legal, it goes to the board or whatever. Does the mayor still, at the very tail end, when it's ready to go to the board meeting, I would think the mayor would want to know what's going on.
Well, he controls the agenda.
Yeah. That's the one.
Yeah, it does.
Agenda.
So this is, the mayor or alderman is what you, change all those to just say everything goes through the liaison. Which is,
I
which
think
is
that's
good.
cleaner, because you're right, he does approve the agenda, so.
Yeah, that's right.
So if that committee wanted to bring something and he didn't agree with it, he could stop
Just
it.
say it's not.
Yeah.
That's his right.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay.
And then this is when we all look at Bridget and go, do we have to bring this back next time, or can we?
Can we?
We do it.
As
Can
long
I
as
make a
Mark,
motion to approve with the changes?
As long as Brandy has her changes written down, you're good to do it this time.
Hey, I'm sorry to do this, but I'm gonna go back to as required again. I wanna be clear on that, just because of Daryl, as an example. Who's gonna notify Daryl that he's required to go to a meeting?
I think that should fall under the Alderman liaison.
I do too, and I think it should be in there. I mean, that way he knows, like, that he's notified, hey, we need you at this meeting because we need your expertise. But that seems to be cleaner as opposed to leaving it open-ended.
I read as required to not be by a person, but to be as needed
You
in
did.
the
As needed is-
situation. But
Okay?
that's
By the village
my
officers and
interpretation,
employees.
I could be
so-
reading it wrong.
It's only by the village officers and employees, as required.
Okay, I know
I think
that.
that's good.
Okay, we can leave that. Okay,
And
so,
before we restate this, did I hear consensus that we don't want more than one contractor on this committee? Is
That's
that what I heard?
I mean, I think it's fair that that's a concern.
That's fair.
And are you adding that to this?
That's,
We
yeah,
would
I
need to.
got all kinds of notes.
Nobody would be.
So-
Well, y'all appoint, but if you want future boards to be bound by it till they change it, then
I was
you
just gonna
could
say-
write it in here.
The resolution can just not include a general, just one general contractor. When it comes time to add a private citizen or whatever.
Yeah, I noted one general contractor and 2 citizens, ideally, so it's a committee.
ideally, if we can get two.
Yeah.
And if we can get 3 or whatever, I wouldn't write the number of citizens, because we might be able to get 3 or 4.
It says the number of members of the committee, there is no.
There
set
is no
number.
set number.
There's no set
Okay,
number.
so it's one general contractor and citizens, right?
That's correct.
Well, and the general contractor is also a citizen.
Yeah, correct.
Needs to be.
Oh, yeah, by default.
Are we gonna salvage this thing, or are we gonna rewrite it?
I think I've got enough notes that I've made all the changes on here.
I think we should rewrite it, make sure we have it right.
I was getting ready to read the changes, they're pretty simple, really.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, somebody read the changes.
Getting-
I don't think that my opinion is we don't need to get hung up on this one general contractor versus 2. That's, to me, that can be handled as membership of the committee. This is about forming the committee. The next page is about who's on the committee, so I don't know that we need to get all hung up about how many of this or that. That could
Just
be.
put citizens in there.
Goldie, the board has expressed our opinion to Goldie that there should not be too many general contractors on there. So when Goldie brings back XYZ construction superintendent, we're all gonna say, no, Goldie, we're not gonna approve that person. There's too many general contractors or whatever.
Do you want me to summarize them, or you summarize?
I
got
can,
them all, yeah.
I'll
I'll keep you honest.
I guess I make a motion to make these changes. In A, all I have is to take out where it says have meetings, take 2 words out. And B, no changes, because the will of the mayor is fine. C is no changes.
Yep.
Number 1, we take out mayor or
Yep.
in 2 places. And in number 2, we take out mayor or in 1 place. In 3, we take out mayor or in 2 places.
Yep.
In 4, no changes.
Yeah.
No,
You got
there's
mayor
a mayor
or.
or, there's another mayor or in there. And then 5 is there's 1 mayor or removed.
Yep.
And 6 stays like it is.
I thought we said following review and approval by the Alderman liaison and legal counsel, a request may be made to place
We
the
took it out,
ordinance
because he has
item.
final approval of the agenda anyhow.
Right, a request may be made to place the ordinance on the board meeting agenda by the Alderman liaison. Nothing in this provision creates a right of anyone other than alderman or a mayor to place items on the agenda.
So the mayor comes out of,
Yeah.
mayor, following review and approval, the alderman liaison, approval by the alderman liaison and legal counsel. A request is made to put it on the board
Right.
agenda.
So-
By the Alderman liaison.
Well, the agenda is
Submitted
typically,
to the mayor, correct?
it's the mayor or the alderman that can do the agenda. I think that's might even be
The
specified.
yeah.
Alderman can't.
No,
By
mayor
themselves.
sets the agenda.
We can recommend this though.
Okay.
Yeah, if it says that.
I move to approve what Alan just stated.
Approve the resolution with changes, right?
Yep.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Well, that was exciting.
That was the first time.
Easy.
All right, well then, let's go to B, because, discuss and take possible action to approve resolution 4-2024, appointing members of the ordinance review committee by approving member Steve Kavlicek as coordinator. Okay, I need that open for discussion.
Open for discussion.
Okay, as this goes through here, we're gonna name somebody anyway on there. Steve, do you want to be the coordinator?
No, I don't want to be on the committee at all.
Okay,
I'm done with your game, so.
Would you think Freddie would be interested in serving?
No, Freddie's not gonna serve either, neither will Manny, so it leaves it to you and Al, and y'all can have the whole thing.
all right.
You're the last contractor on the island.
All right, so, I guess we just remove this from the agenda.
Yep.
Bridget, you said that we needed to make a resolution. Do we need to appoint somebody tonight?
If we're not appointing anybody,
We don't need.
we don't need to do the item. We
Okay.
can always come back.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure you know, you wanted to do
Yes,
this.
if
but-
we had our people, I wanted to set up now based on that ordinance.
Yeah.
But if we don't have the people now,
Okay.
we'll come back.
All right, we're removing item D off the agenda. C, discuss and take possible action to approve bid replacing a 30-foot of wooden bulkhead on Windward Way for $7,440.
Motion to discuss.
Go ahead.
I'm fine with this. I also think at a future meeting, we ought to consider putting on the agenda to up the mayor's limit on expenses from $5,000 to maybe 10, because in today's world, you're not gonna get much for $5,000. That's another meeting, but just think about that, maybe we put that on a future agenda.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with this, and we'll make a motion to approve unless anybody else has got any questions.
I'll second.
You got a question?
Okay.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, let's go to D, consider and take possible action to approve replat of lots 34 and 35, section 1, 1223 Hawaii, owner David and Teresa Zappala.
Motion to discuss.
Go ahead.
Daryl's everything in order in the packet?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just combining two lots again?
Mhm.
Can I ask a question, a procedural thing? We talked about this yesterday. The replatting of lots is in the zoning portion of the ordinances. So I guess you function as the zoning person in that case.
I guess I have been.
Yeah, I mean, well, it didn't occur to me until I was looking for where does it say replatting, and I did a search, and it goes down to 44, or whatever it is, and I kind of went, well, that's interesting, I thought it was in building construction for some reason, but Daryl's our replatting guy, I know that, so.
Yeah, it's just a weird administrative state requirement.
Mhm.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, I'm gonna move E, down below K. Let's go to F. Consider and take action. We're gonna remove this one off of the agenda, F, for this time.
No,
G, I think.
not it.
No, G, I'm sorry. Okay, consider and take action on bids received for elevator replacement in public safety building with recommendation to award approval to Elevators of Texas.
Motion to discuss.
Go ahead.
You would probably cover this in the summary you're about to give us. I just noticed that there was an extensive list of work by others from one bidder, and didn't see that same thing on the other bid, and I wondered if you talked to them about that.
Did not talk to them about that, but I think that's pretty standard. They don't do flooring, they don't do painting.
Okay, so we're assuming the work by others list is the same, it's gotta be done.
And to be honest with you, I read through and I tried to determine more technical specs about the elevator from, what's it called?
Yeah, the one for
Vertical
transport.
transportation.
Mhm.
It's kind of hard to.
I tried to read, the Elevators of Texas is a little more specific about being a, I forget what they call it, limited use or whatever, but at any rate, assuming everything is equal, the one bid is about $3,000 more or less than the other. And, so I didn't follow up that.
Is the space already air conditioned and has sprinklers?
I don't know that, is this building sprinkled?
Yeah, is it air conditioned?
This building, it would, I
The
think it,
space where the elevator is.
I don't know if it is or not.
did you read that somewhere in there that?
It's in the vertical transportation mandatory requirements by others that it's got to be air conditioned and have a sprinkler system.
Well, now, we would fall under the code,
Oh,
this
yes.
building's grandfathered, I'm sure, because I don't see sprinklers anywhere.
Well, there's sprinklers down below.
Why are you
There is a
asking?
sprinkler system in this building, but it doesn't cover the whole building.
Yeah, it says suitable
I understand
ventilation,
this
cooling
applied to the
equipment.
machinery space where the equipment was gonna go. That's kind of my world.
Well, if
Actually,
that's the
Hunter, it
case,
doesn't say
then-
you have to have, it says suitable ventilation and cooling equipment if required, as long as you can maintain a temperature between 45 degrees Fahrenheit and 90 Fahrenheit and 85%
You
humidity.
can't maintain that
Yeah,
without.
close enough.
Well, but the elevators of Texas didn't have any of that in there, but did I see that in there,
Right.
where they're, have those conditions?
They didn't, that's why I asked. They didn't ask for those accommodations.
For what it's worth, next door is the church, we've been doing some elevator work, it's a bigger
Yeah.
elevator,
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
not air conditioned.
It doesn't have any of that.
Uh-uh.
I just think, this air conditioning sprinkler is a whole separate deal, and that would come in under the code, and my assumption would be this building is grandfathered. Daryl, he keeps looking at me funny. This building is grandfathered because it was built at a time before the current, fire sprinkler code. I'm not a sprinkler guy, it could be the number of square footage that this building is, or there's 1,000 things about sprinklers. Daryl, do you have a comment on that, Daryl?
I don't know that.
Okay. Maybe that's best.
So I'm fine with awarding it to the lowest bidder as long as before we do so, we talk to them about this and say, listen, you guys aren't gonna stop work on the job because these things don't exist in the machinery space. That's the way I handled it. Because I think you're right. I think this other company said, you know, we're gonna do it in the place it is, we're familiar with the job, we know what we're getting into. And this may just be boilerplate from vertical transportation. But we also don't want to get ourselves in a bad situation and award the bid, and then come back and say, yeah, but you have to air condition the space before we can start on the job, because you're not gonna have any warranty on your equipment, and it's never gonna work if we're not at the right humidity. So I think just a quick phone call before you award the job, and then you can always come back to the next meeting and say, hey, we tried to award the job, but they stuck to it, the terms of their bid, and they can't do the work without us spending another $30,000 for all this extra stuff, so we need to bring this back before the board. So I think that's how I
And
handle it.
if it matters, it turns out this is actually elevator number 2, as I understand it. Elevators of Texas put the original elevator in when the building was built. So that's why they're so familiar with the elevator shaft and all that. So they're very familiar with what's here. So that should be a good thing. Then, I don't know, I guess it was Marshall Stevenson, I always want to say Marshall, but they put this second elevator in, I believe, which is essentially a residential elevator.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll go over it with them, but I knew going in that we're also gonna be having to do some flooring, either simple VCT glue-in tile or whatever, and then the 2 door frames and doors will have to be painted. It's just not some elevator people do.
Which is fine, none of that's a big deal.
And this is still the automatic door, all the things we talked about, the automatic
Yeah.
doors, okay.
No, there is no, I'll tell you right now, we already talked about this, there is no gate. It's gonna seem awkward, but the only way they can make that happen is, for handicapped people, is you walk up and you push the button, the door opens, and there is no gate. You just wheel yourself in, and then the door automatically closes, and as the elevator goes up, you're gonna see the wall go by. And in talking to this guy, he said that the deal is the clearances between has to be less than a 2-inch clearance or something, so I guess, and this is all approved by the state. I mean, this will have a TDL&R inspection, so it may feel a little weird to see the wall go by.
It might seem a little weird when you have a 7-year-old in there who wants to touch the wall.
Yeah. Don't let them.
I know, but
And are they saying that's the only
somebody's
way
gonna
to
be
do
holding
it?
the button the whole time and not see the 7-year-old.
That's the only way to do it, short of spending $150,000 on a true commercial ADA rated elevator. But, and I guess they just never came up with a good way to have a cylinder, hydraulic cylinder on the accordion gate or whatever. I'm sure that'd be real troublesome. But apparently this is the way it's done for a limited use, or whatever I think they call it, limited use, limited application, LULA. Anyway, that type of elevator.
Okay. Any more questions? Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
This is for the elevators of Texas.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe that's right. I guess we need to restate that.
Oh, yeah.
All right, motion passes, and it's gonna be for elevators of Texas. We're removing G off the agenda. We're going to H. H, discuss and take possible action to approve ordinance 04-23-01, amending chapter 6, article 3, division 3, section 6-82, 2 and 6-82, 3, restrictions on structures, utility easements, and outside front and side build lines. All right,
Motion to discuss?
go ahead.
I have, let's see. So the question I have is, this is kind of awkward because there's also 6-1, which I guess is next or whatever. So what I read here is that the above ground improvements have been removed from 6-1, and then they're redefined in here.
Front build line is redefined.
Front build line and
And side build line.
I guess side too. So here's where I'm headed with this. Back in February, I think it was, we had a huge discussion about open porches, closed porches, porches, and it went around and around and around, and we finally approved the house on Bora Bora. At that meeting, I think I made the comment, but for sure it was made that we need to define what an open porch is, because it turns out the project is really an addition onto the house. The roof line comes out, a garage and a half is built, and it's all under the guise of an open porch. And at that time, I had a problem with that, but so, and all I'm saying is that in order to have information to go on, I think for this board, the next time it comes up, we need to have a definition of what an open porch is. And then there's a new term in here called open porch / balconies. Am I in the right place? I hope, yeah.
So it's walkway steps, open roof, and open porch balconies that are non-ground supported. Right? So in other words, you can't stick a post, you can't stick a column out beyond the build line to support your open porch.
But this,
So this essentially is closing the gap that we had in that last one that went forward.
well, so if we go back to those, we're saying some things that can be done in front of the build line. And-
Above air, right?
Well, it doesn't really matter. It could be LP gas tanks, or it could be what, but in the ordinance, it specifically says we can have walkways, steps, open porches, eave extensions, and open porch / balconies. The understanding, I guess, is that they're not ground supported, but I just think that in 6-1, I assume, I don't honestly, I mean, can someone define for me what an open porch is? If a guy said, if a person says, I want to build an open porch on my front of my house, what is that? Is it a place to sit out there in lawn chairs? Or can it have doors, and can it have screen walls or no screen walls? I mean, that meeting in February, we went around and around for an hour over whether this person could build an open porch, and the person here claimed it was a closed, is that the word? Covered. He was saying it's a covered porch. Well, covered porch is not anywhere in the ordinance, so I'm just saying that when this comes up, I want to build something in front of the front build line, and if we're going to name 5 things that can be built, I don't know what an open porch is. And so can it be as big as anybody wants to build it? And is it covered or not covered? Does it have a roof over it or not have a roof? So I'm just asking. I think that we ought to have, I just don't know what an open porch is. We ought to have that defined.
I don't know, I'm not sure I know the answer either. I'd like to get this ordinance discussed and voted on, so I know a lot of work went into it, right? Your committee worked on it ad nauseum. I think it's been before us a couple of times, and I think you've reviewed the language. So, to me, if we need to vote it and pass it and move forward, and our new committee can go define open porches, right? If we need to come back and provide a definition somewhere, because it's been worked on for quite a while.
And basically what the ordinance committee done was they just eliminated posts going past the build line.
They did.
And the porch could go past it, but the post supporting the structure couldn't. And that's all it was taken. That was what the intent was of the whole thing anyway, was just to find where the post could go, the supporting structure post.
Correct.
And that's what they done, is they took that out. But to answer your question, I can't answer it.
Well, I'll tell you that in January of 202 Catamaran, we told that person they could not have a piling out on the front.
Which they took out of this, right? There can't be a piling on the ground outside of it.
Well, but that's what he's getting back to.
We approved it on Bora Bora.
They approved it on Bora Bora, it's outside the build line. So what happened is they took it back out where Steve and Freddie and them took it back out where it goes behind the build line, the
Right.
supporting structure post, but anything else can cantilever over.
Right.
But you're not gonna cantilever over 10 foot.
And the one on Catamaran was for the pool house piece, right? And it was the foundation as well as one of the walls was out beyond. It wasn't just a supporting post. That's kind of what we went round and round.
There weren't any walls, it was a
Mhm.
flopping thing.
No, it wasn't a
No,
lava,
louvered walls.
no. It actually had walls,
Louvered walls.
louvered walls, basically all on 3 sides. It had louvered walls on 3 sides.
okay.
And the
But there
foundation
was actually a concrete structure that was gonna be over like 1 foot.
Right.
Mm.
That's why we didn't do it. So these are very different. You guys keep bringing that up, let me see.
Okay.
But
And so-
I agree with Gary, I think we should go ahead and vote on this.
We're not gonna vote on it just yet, because I got another question.
Then ask a
Uh,
question.
It says no habitable living areas allowed past the build line without approval of the alderman. So, what is, does anybody know the definition of habitable space? You know where that's
Yeah,
defined?
well, that would be AC, you use the term AC space a lot of times.
Well, let me read it to you. International Residential Code says that a space in a building for living, sleeping, eating, or cooking. And then it goes on to say that bathrooms, toilet rooms, closets, halls, storage, or utility spaces and similar areas are not considered habitable spaces. That's the definition from the International Residential Code. So in this way this reads, you could have a bathroom, a toilet, a closet, a hall, or a storage area as habitable. That's considered not habitable living area. So this definition either needs to be clarified or taken out. Because I was curious, it's another one of those deals. I looked up open porch. I searched International Residential Code, I searched International Building Code. Go try to find the words open porch and you won't find it. It's weird, I don't know why. They've got a thing called an accessory structure. And I thought, maybe that's it, but then I read it and it was like for a pool house. But habitable space, I thought, what exactly is a habitable space? Well, I go to the International Residential Code, R202, and that's what it says. And so I'm like, well, we've adopted the International Residential Code here in the village, so we might need to circle around and say that, and not use that term. We might need to say that you can't have living, sleeping, eating, or whatever. But this is a habitable space, is what it's in the International Residential.
Now, I have a question. How would a non-habitable area be approved under this? I don't think it's approved either. I mean, how would somebody have how would they have a bathroom extending beyond the build line?
Well, it says that,
If it's a non-habitable area, if a bathroom, as per the building code, is non-habitable, how would it extend past the build line? Where would you find approval for that? 'Cause I don't think it would be. I don't think it would be approved either, habitable or non-habitable. Do you have any comments, even though you resigned?
That's just a living area.
No living area. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it doesn't matter either way, right? I mean, even if it's not habitable and you can't get, how would you allow it beyond the building line? because it already tells you what is and isn't allowed beyond the build line.
There,
An open
there's
porch.
items I mentioned, it says they're not considered to be habitable spaces. This says no habitable living areas allowed in front of the build line. These are not non-habitable spaces.
Yeah, my question was, how is it non-habitable when allowed beyond? I don't think it is. I think it falls under the
Let
same
me ask you
guidelines.
this, could we not just pass this thing and then go back to the
I agree.
International Building Code? Hold on a minute, please. Pass this thing, go back to the International Building Code, and if there's something past the build line that's in the building code, it has to be let go. If it's a closet, a bathroom, or something like that, and it's over the build line, according to what we adopted in the International Building Code, the interpretation would have to be left up to Daryl. And then that way, we're in there, and then the only thing we could do here to do this so we don't do that again is why don't we just write in, go to the International Building Code for habitable living area? And that's it, and just write it in like we did the other one, we don't have to go back to nobody, and just write it in, refer back to building code for non-habitable living area. And then that solves it, right then and there. And we've passed it, and we're going to the next thing.
So
And
you
it's
would-
still referencing what goes to the board, that's what this is about.
But if you reference the building code, it says you don't bring that to the board that's listed in the building code, because that's as a non-habitable building area by the International Building Code, which we adopted. So if we just say, refer to building code, and then it's left to your discretion to go out about the bathrooms and all of that, and then we can add that in here. We don't have to go back. We added it into the other one, why can't we add it into
For
this one?
living
So I,
Well, I hate to I don't.
You know, then maybe an amendment to the code.
There's actually a
You can let them put a
definition.
bedroom, but not, you can let them put a bathroom over, but not a bedroom.
Well, what I'm thinking about is a storage area.
Are we talking ground floor?
No, we're talking
Talking
about.
living level?
Yes.
Above,
First
just
level.
like the Bora house we talked about, they could decide to put a storage room, a 10 by 10 storage room out on their open porch, because it's not considered to be a habitable.
I see.
So it just needs to be defined, needs to be written in there. I don't personally think we want open porches with storage areas. I mean, I don't know, maybe we do, there's several things. And there's also a definition of a living space. So it probably should say habitable space or living space, but we can go back and review that. Then, they don't combine the two. They don't combine habitable living space in the code for some reason. And then I have one other quick thing. I don't know if this is a quick question for Bridget or not. We're in 6-1, we're taking out above ground improvements. But in, let's see, where is it? In 1419 and 44-1, we use above ground living space. So does it matter in between various ordinances if we change terminology or delete terminology or whatever?
Yes, we definitely want to be consistent. The one that will be, that's adopted later in time will always trump the ones from before. So we always need to take that into consideration. If you want a different definition in
Yeah.
different sections, you need to keep it.
Well, and it's no reflection on anybody. I just didn't understand why there's 6 words that say open porch, yada, yada. I don't understand why we took those from 6-1 and deleted them and moved them over and put them twice in 6-82. Why not just keep the definition of an above ground living space? It's open porch, a balcony, whatever you want to call it. And that's just more of a technical thing as to why remove it from 6-1 and move it over here, because then the next time you make an ordinance change, you're going to forget that you put it in 682. And that's how things start to get messed up. And I don't know if you have an objection to that. I mean, because I did know that it was used under zoning, and I forget what the other one is, 14-something.
we have a lot of things like that if you actually go through our ordinances where language is inconsistent.
So my comment tonight is that I would intend to vote for this because it takes the supporting post, it solves the supporting post problem. But I absolutely agree with Alan that we need a cleaner, documented, open porch, and I would hope that we can follow up on that in the next meeting, because that Bora Bora thing was very illuminating to me.
Could we do this in a way though, as per Goldie's suggestion, that in that number 2 on here, it basically has a provision that says international building code definitions for habitable living areas apply.
And just do no habitable living area as defined by the residential code.
That'd be perfect. If you do that, then you're already then going to a definition that exists that we've adopted anyway.
We've already adopted the building.
Say that again, Bridget. No habitable living area
As defined by the residential code.
as defined by the residential code.
International
International.
Residential 2018.
And then put-
International Residential code
As adopted.
as adopted, not defined.
2018.
That way, if that'll change with every time we
Right.
adopt a new
My
code.
suggestion still though, Hunter, exactly is still, let's call, maybe we should call these above ground improvements like they've been done for 25 years. And then it'll say the same exact words, it'll say open porch, whatever, walkways. And then when it comes time to define an open porch, we just go to 6-1 and we add open porch, and then it's all in 6-1.
I'm good with that.
And then over here in 882, it just says above ground improvements.
Right.
And that, to me, without above ground tells you right there that it ain't on the ground. I guess that
I'm
was.
fine with that.
But that's more of a, well, okay, that's over.
Hang on, wait. Well, we're jumping from thing to thing, right? So stay on the one we're in.
Yeah, so we
So
just.
Alan, let me make sure, are you wanting to take out the front build line thing completely out
No,
of
no.
682?
No, I'm saying-
You're just
I'm
saying
saying-
you want to leave a definition in 6.1.
Yes, I'm just saying, it will say above ground improvements instead of walkway, steps, open porches, extensions of eaves and balconies. Those words will be moved back over to 6-1. And then here it'll just say above ground improvements are
Okay,
non-supportive,
so
whatever.
let me read this out as you're proposing. So above ground, I'm using my shorthand, improvements as defined in 6-1, right?
Mhm.
That are non-ground supported, can extend beyond the front build line but may not extend the utility easement. No habitable living area, as adopted by the International Building Code of 2018, is allowed past the build line without approval from the Board of Aldermen. The building official, yada, yada, yada.
But didn't
Wanna
we
take
say
out
take
18?
out the 2018, so every time we adopt a new building?
Yeah.
Okay, International Residential Code, okay, so take that, and then the building official shall conduct a site review for issue permit allowed to extend out beyond side yard line.
Mhm.
Does that work?
Yeah, or you could just
Okay.
accept the one that was up above it that's crossed through, essentially the same words.
I like what we just did.
I'd make a motion to approve as this ordinance as just read by Patty.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
No,
one opposed. All right, I, discuss and take action to approve ordinance 04-2302, amending chapter 6, article 1, section 6-1 definition, repealing definition of above-ground improvements, amending definition of front build line, and amending definition of side build line, and adding definition of swimming pool and spa.
Motion to discuss.
Go ahead.
I think we should do this. I'll start it that way.
Okay. I had.
We're just talking about the definitions page here.
Yes.
well, we just made a change, we already made it, we preempted a change
Yeah.
in the other.
Yeah, but you preempted a change and voted no, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on
Uh,
something that you're not for.
Again, I'm not for the 682 change, because I thought the original 682 it had said almost the same words. I
We already
questioned
voted on
why,
that, let's move
I don't know
on.
why 682 was even changed. But, so you can't just accept 6-1 by itself based on what we just approved.
I know that, I just want to get things going. So let's figure out
There was
where
a
we're at.
proposal to
We'll
put
clean it
back
up.
in, above ground improvements is defined as walkways, steps, open porches, extension of the eaves of the roof. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so instead of striking it, it would remain.
With the exception that it will be, the words you had in 682, it'll also include open porches / balconies, I think is the other word that's in there.
No, what we did in 682 was that above ground improvements as
Wait,
defined in
no, you're getting
6-1.
confused. The word, but the same words I said that you crossed through
Yeah.
have to be moved over here.
Yeah, that's what this is, right here.
But these are different words. you don't have open porch / balconies, I'm not sure. It just needs to be added here. Or you can just go back to this original one. Maybe,
Are you putting this back in as it is?
well, I'm questioning what,
We already voted on
the
686,
words
we're not going
open,
back there.
it says open porch / balconies. Those are new. Those words were never in any ordinance. And I'm curious what that is. What is an open porch / balcony? Is that different? I mean, it was, I'm just saying, it was added to 682. I didn't write it. I'm just saying what's in there. It's a new term that was not in 6-1.
So for what we just did in 682, those words are not in there. It now says in 682, which we just read through, above ground improvements is defined in 6-1, which means we're gonna have to define it in 6-1, right? As adopted, let's see, that are non-ground supported can extend beyond front build line, but not to the utilities. No habitable living area, as adopted by the International Residential Code, is allowed past the bill act of approval from the Board of Aldermen, the building official, yada yada. Which means then, in 6-1, you're gonna have to define above ground improvements. There's language in there now which was struck. Does anybody wanna alter that language?
I do.
Okay, so if everybody, are we good with voting on this by leaving in above ground improvements? That would stay in. You would have the new one that's the front build line is defined and the swimming pool one. That's how that would now read. Yes or no?
The front build line was actually, it already said.
It says typically 20 feet.
It already said that. So there's a problem in, and I don't know how you can cross the lines between multiple ordinances, but I don't agree with the village defining what a swimming pool is, because we've got the 2018 International Swimming Pool and Spa Code, which defines 3 or 4 different kinds of pools: residential pools, commercial pools, wading pools. So I don't know why we will want to go out and define what a swimming pool is when it's already defined in the pool and spa code.
Does the International Building Code define above ground swimming pools?
The international.
Or whatever code?
The International Pool and Spa Code.
Oh, that's what I meant.
It
Is it
defines,
above ground?
well, it depends on, no, it does not define, it defines an on-ground pool, which is actually, like I said in the February meeting, that's like a Walmart pool that you buy with a metal frame around it. And that's another thing, I was gonna go over that in the pool ordinance, but my point is, this says any water over 24 inches deep or whatever. I just don't think that we need to do that, since we have the state of Texas approved a.
So
pool
the
and
state of
spa
Texas
code.
approved one does say in it, in the way that Governor Abbott approved it, that communities can adopt the things that make sense for their community. So if you don't have anything, by default, you're adopting everything that's in that provision, which is quite extensive, and some of which probably doesn't work well for Tiki. The way he signed it, as opposed to like Georgia and Alabama, who just said, this is it, nothing. Texas put a provision in there that said communities could go in and essentially adopt the pieces that make sense for their community as well, and that could override. So that gives us a little bit of a leeway, because there's some things that just wouldn't make sense given the uniqueness of Tiki. I think that was part of the rationale behind defining in here what this means, because on Tiki, this is what that would mean. And it is within our right to do that, according to the way Abbott signed the law. There's a very specific provision in there that says they understand that all communities are not the same, and that someone will need to go in and adopt the part of this that makes sense for their community, their region, their citizens. I think that was the rationale by putting this definition in here as well, to say this is what we mean by swimming
So,
pools.
Bridget, you might be familiar, they passed 2 more bills related to this. House Bill 2205 was passed in 2021. And I think this one, it says typical what you expect them to add in. If a municipality adopts something that conflicts with the state, then the state law controls. And so if we define swimming pool and it conflicts with what the state adopted, then ours doesn't count.
Right, that's the big preemption one. Does that talk about preempting?
It-
Anything that state law talks about, we can't do anything with?
They added a municipality may adopt a more recent version of the International Swimming Pool Code, which is interesting. They added that, I guess I don't know why we wouldn't have been able to do that to begin with. That's added to section 2 of 103, but then it says to the extent of a provision of a code adopted by us conflicts with a law of the state or a regulation on pool operation, management, water quality, safety standards unrelated to design and construction, signage or enclosures, the law or regulation controls. So I read that to mean that the state of Texas controls, if they have a code or a law related to those things, then they control it.
Right, so what I'm betting, and I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong here, is 24 inches deep, is that regulated by the swimming pool?
I don't think so.
Right, so we're making it more strict. So what I'm assuming is we may have some wading pools or something, maybe there's not huge yards and you want to be able to put in something small just to go in. We're saying we're gonna regulate that. So we've made it more strict than the state requires, which is, we can always do that.
Was that 24 inches brought about by the code or anything?
Not that I ever, they did have specific depth requirements in there for things, and I think it was anything over a certain depth, you had to go in and, I don't remember off the top of my head, I'd have to go back and look again, I have it saved on my computer, if it was specifically 24 inches, but over a certain depth, then you did have to go in and apply some of the safety measures that they had, like the locking gate has to be fenced, the gates with the locks, those types of things as well. Because otherwise, yeah, something that's 6 inches deep is what apply to, and that wouldn't make any sense. 2 feet's enough that it harms a child.
Well, my problem with writing ordinance, things like that, is that if it's possible, I'm not an attorney, but if we write some swimming pool code for the city, and it sort of goes awry away from the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code, and some little kid drowns in a pool, then we could be sued.
No, we can't.
We don't have liability for that.
Nope.
Even though we write an
It's
ordinance
on
that
private
says.
property.
Well, and we can't be sued for enforcement of our ordinances like that. Even if we did it horribly and there was what we regulate within someone's backyard and we should have known, we have immunity for that.
Okay. Well, nonetheless, the swimming pool ordinance is a whole separate thing. I just don't understand why we need to define swimming pool in our definitions when it's clearly, easily defined multiple times in the International Pool and Spa Code.
I'll take a stab at that. So if it's defined in the International Pool and Spa Code, we can easily say swimming pool means any structure is defined by the International Pool and Spa Code, and then we can go on to say including above ground pools, and then we can say whatever we want. Because
So
above
what is
ground
an
pools are
above
in
ground
there,
pool?
that we need to put it in there.
There's no definition of an above ground pool.
I can tell you that probably just about anybody walking down the street could tell you the difference in an above ground and underground pool.
What's
So,
your definition of it?
What is in the ground, it's above the ground. I mean, you can see when a pool has walls that come up and you know that it's dug into a hole as opposed to somebody that brought a pool over and set it on top of the ground.
So are you okay with people doing that? Bringing in a Walmart pool that they ordered or an Amazon pool? I don't know. I'm asking a question.
We're defining it in here, right? And then we can handle the code wherever we want to handle the code, right? So we're just defining what a pool is so that we can.
I'm telling you that it's
enforce it.
defined in the International Pool and Spa Code as an on-ground pool, which clearly defines what we're talking about here is a big round pool that's got a metal skirt around it, with pool equipment or without, is defined in the international, and one of my proposals over here in the other ordinance we're gonna talk about is that we prohibit those in the village of Tiki.
Do you prohibit above ground or on ground?
They're called on ground. Now that's different. That's a multi-level pool would be one that one end of it, like many of them in Tiki, one end is ground level, the other end has a 2 or 3 foot wall on it because our lot's all slope.
Still in ground.
That's in ground. I don't call that an above ground pool. But the term above ground is not defined in the international code, but on ground is defined. And if we say on-ground pools are not allowed in Tiki, we refer back to the code and it tells you exactly what an on-ground pool is. we don't write electrical, mechanical, we don't go around writing ordinances about 220 volt electricity and 120 volt. We rely on the National Electric Code, the plumbing code, the mechanical code. I don't know why we want to dive into the swimming pool code.
But doesn't that code, it doesn't say how deep an on-ground pool can be. It can be any size, correct?
And on ground?
Or above ground.
I would have to pull up the.
I think that's the whole purpose of this paragraph is the 24 inches. If it's going to be above ground or on ground, we want to limit those. We don't want a 6 foot above ground.
No, that's not what, that's not what it says. It says if it's deeper than 24 inches, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
The water's deeper than 24 inches.
So for instance,
That's
like
what it falls
somebody
under.
bringing in a kiddie pool, right, that doesn't count. Somebody's got a kiddie pool in their driveway, that's not 24 inches, you know. Now, some of the blow-up pools that you get, that people do on a temporary basis, those are over 24
Mhm.
inches,
Mm-hmm.
right? People blow them up for the weekend, they've got their kids on it, you know, their kids in it, which is fine. I mean,
I can tell
that
you why.
that would be included in this as well.
My opinion is why the International Code Council, ICC, didn't define the depth of a pool, because how many times have you heard people say, you can drown in a bathtub? So why, if I were writing this big worldwide international code, I would not tell you how deep a pool is. I would say a pool is a big hole in the ground with concrete in it, because if you write it and say, well, this pool's only 21 inches deep, so we didn't realize we could drown in it because of international code said pools are 24 inches deep. And if you're over here writing on the code side, you got a bunch of technical people writing code. I don't think you define the depth of a pool, because that could lead to people saying, you didn't define it right, it's not a pool. How did my little child drown in it, or whatever, you know?
I don't think it's practical for us to have an ordinance that says somebody can't, on a weekend, put a kiddie pool out there for their kid. And if we say there are no above-ground pools allowed at all, you're gonna eliminate all that.
So your definition on 6-1 of an above-ground pool is a blow-up pool for kids,
It's something that you don't have to dig a hole in the ground.
but more than 24 inches deep.
Something you don't have to dig a hole in there. What I don't wanna get into is there's something in here that's so restrictive that for somebody to basically go and have their grandkids here for the weekend and go get a blow-up pool from Walmart, they're gonna keep up for the weekend, they're gonna anchor down. We go on and we cite them and tell them that they're breaking our regulations because that's an above-ground pool. I don't think that's practical for here.
Well, you know, okay, what,
That's in the other.
I'm talking about it, you know, do you understand what I'm talking about? A pool that has like
I do, you're talking
an
about
elevated
you're
deck
talking about
around
the ones
it.
the ones
So-
that people put up on a permanent basis. But
Yeah,
they're
so
collapsible.
I'm just saying that just the first person who looks out there on Saturday morning and sees that somebody putting in a 36-foot diameter pool that they ordered on Amazon and plugging in a bunch of electrical equipment and putting a wooden deck around it, somebody's gonna be raising Cain, I believe. I wouldn't want one next door to my house. And that's why I said we should eliminate the definition in the code of on ground.
Yeah, that's a little further
I'll tell you
down.
right now,
That's a little
I've
further down,
studied
right?
this a lot, okay? I've studied it a lot.
Yeah,
And I'm just trying to tell y'all some of the things I've learned.
I agree with you on that, but I think that's a little further down. Right now, we're talking about the
Yeah.
definitions.
Right.
So let's define it, what the heck? But what do we do if we define it and we're in conflict with the international code? Bridget says that's okay.
Yeah, as long as we are more strict, more restrictive, we can make it more restrictive.
Well, I don't know what 24 inches says. I don't know if that's more.
Is it gonna hurt anything if we just remove that swimming pool definition? The more I listen here, I don't know that it matters to have that in here, to Alan's point. Because we're gonna talk about pool ordinance in a minute, we can put all the restrictions we want in that.
You'd have to put a definition in there too, probably, right?
We don't need to.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we spent 30 minutes trying to define a pool, so, I mean, we probably need to have some definition somewhere we can write, even if it just says the International Pool and Spa Code as defined by, wouldn't we?
If you're gonna put a swimming pool ordinance in, don't we have to define that?
I would think.
Right.
It's
I
given.
think you,
So,
yeah.
but
And if it's gotta go in definition.
We have unofficially, with the state adopted the pool code for us.
Right,
I
that
keep
is
getting the feeling-
adopted.
Yeah, got
I
that.
keep
for us.
getting the feeling
We're
that
all
different
done.
people think that we don't really have to enforce that code Because we're gonna come over here and write 7 sentences that completely defines the world of pools.
If we didn't define it, it would default
To the international pool and
So
spa.
let's not define
Then if we don't define it, then we have to worry about it.
Let's approve this and
Because
strike
we
that.
can't hold Daryl responsible for no what's in that code anyhow. He didn't do it anyhow. We hold the pool companies
Good with that.
responsible for that.
Yes.
No, yes. I make a motion that we approve this and with the removal of the definition of a swimming pool.
Second.
So we were adding back
It's
in.
gone. We've taken out all the changes.
No, we said we were gonna leave above ground improvements back in.
No, I'm sorry, okay, we have to say
Right?
we're gonna put that
Because
back in.
as this is here now, we still have to do it as it was presented.
Okay,
Yes. What you said about leaving that in, what you said about taking that out, I second that.
It is.
Do we have to say aye?
But we need to read what we have.
Oh, all right, so section 6-1, above ground improvements is defined as walkway, steps, and porches to the eaves of a roof, that stays in. On front build line is defined as the distance, and typically 20 feet has been inserted, and we're striking the swimming pool definition. That's it.
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Who's my liaison, so I can, how to interpret this?
Let's go to Jay.
He hasn't appointed yet.
We're going to Jay. Discuss the street parking issue and possible impeding of parking citation policy, implementing parking citation policy. All right, get a motion to discuss,
Motion to discuss.
okay?
I didn't put this on here.
I thought this was the police department.
Oh,
there you
Oh, there
There he is.
You're looking at all of us and we're like,
Hey guys, I appreciate it. What this is stemming from is a bunch of complaints that have been approached to us at the department. A lot of citizens here in Tiki is complaining that their walk path, bicycle path is being blocked by cars being parked overnight. And they feel that they can be endangered by having to walk around into the main street traffic and go around. I approached Brandy about this, myself and my captain did, to see what we can do to move forward. One of the recommendations that I have made is to let me read what our ordinance already has, what we have in place now. And I did read that. So there is gonna be some tweaking that we need to do to the ordinance to show this. My recommendation to also Brandy was to, and after some research I did, we have to have signage, to posted throughout Tiki Drive. And what I recommended is to have no parking past 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. We understand during the day contractors are out there parking and they need places to park and work. Holidays, we get that too. We have large families, at times they'll have to park there as well. This is going to be something that I recommend that we do to stop the complaints coming in. Obviously, we take every complaint very serious, it doesn't matter how small it is. And which is why I'm here before you guys today to discuss it.
question.
Yes, ma'am.
So we have a lot of social events on the island,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
nobody has much parking. And typically in those times, people are parking on the street because it's the only place they have to park.
Yes, ma'am, again, we can show lenience on that. It's just, the biggest majority of these, and I, believe it or not, I'm your night officer, so a lot of times I see folks jogging in the middle of the night, riding their bicycles in the middle of the night, and we do have traffic come through, so if they have to go around those parked vehicles.
Yeah.
But again, holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, and those types of events, of course, we're not gonna sit there and park and write citations to every car that's in violation of that.
And aren't you only talking Tiki Drive too?
Yes, that's it, just Tiki Drive. 'Cause that's
Ah,
where-
okay,
that's
that
where
was
the-
not clear. Okay.
Yeah, that's where the regular bicycle
Okay.
paths are, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
All the other streets, no, there's not a path there for folks to walk.
Would you do 6 p.m. or would you do 10 p.m. to, because there are people who live on Tiki Drive that have social events.
My recommendation
6 to
to
6?
each of you is, on the signage, put 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And.
But there's just as big a hazard in the middle of the day when you got 6 cars parked.
Yes,
in
sir,
that space.
it's true, and I agree with that, but
That's how I
again,
would
most
put it.
of them are contractors who are actually having to work, and no place to park but there. And again, this is just for the safety of our citizens that are pushing baby strollers and jogging and riding bicycles up and down the drive.
So 6 p.m. CM, 6 a.m. you're talking about dark, really?
Yes, sir.
Part of the year it's dark, part of the year.
Yeah, exactly, yes, sir.
But you're talking about when it's dark, basically.
Yes, sir. And, you know, we already have an ordinance that states that you shouldn't park there over 24 hours anyway. There's also, and Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there's also a fine there that's in our city ordinance that states how much it will cost you to see a citation. The thing of it is that we don't have citations for that. That's civil, not criminal. So of course we can obtain those citations. And I can almost assure each of you that once we start writing 1 or 2 citations, that's going to go away. People are going to realize that they should be parking.
I like what you're doing. When you write it, I would also clarify that stripe, the line. A lot of people will park on the side of Tiki, but they're sticking 2 feet over that line, so they need to be inside that line. in my opinion.
Yes, sir. I've actually approached drivers about that. I've actually walked up to home and knocked on the door and asked them to move their cars over a little bit, yes.
Thank you.
I have a question about, you might not have looked into this, but we had talked about one time before about signs all over Tiki. Are we talking about, have to have a sign every 100 feet or 200 feet or 1,000 feet or?
That's actually a good question for Ms. Bridget, because I'm not sure as far as what the law states when it comes to civil like that on signage. I know it, and Ms. Bridget, I believe it's every 100 feet, I believe it is.
I don't know the answer.
I'd have to look that
Yeah, I'll
up,
have to
so
look at
forgive
it.
me for not having that information, but I will get that information.
But I'm assuming it'll be a little 1 foot.
Yeah, it's not gonna be a big old stop sign, size
It's gonna
sign.
be whatever the state requires because it's parking, so it doesn't have to follow a certain regulation size.
I was thinking about the Galveston signs are about that big, but the other option we could do is put in park and ride, park and go, whatever they call it.
Parking meters?
Charge.
Make a little money off the deal?
It'll be section 5831, you put your money in, you know?
Yeah, I'm in favor of this.
I am too.
Thank you for bringing it up.
Yes, sir.
It is a safety concern,
Yes.
and it's becoming a bigger problem.
So as I understand it, you're gonna kind of tweak one of the ordinances and then bring it in?
Yes, sir. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to reread the ordinance to make sure that I'm understanding it like I did the other day, and then I'm gonna add my notes to it. And then I'm gonna forward it to Ms. Brandy to let her review it. And then after we get all that said and done, then we need to go to Ms. Bridget and let her look at it again and approve it before we move forward.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
All right, K, discuss and take action to approve ordinance 0424-04, adding swimming pool and spa regulations to chapter 6, division 7, section 635.
Discussion.
Go ahead.
I would start off with, was the intent to put this as as Division 8 swimming pools? Or, because Division 7 is bulkheads, and I wouldn't really think this ordinance would fall under bulkheads.
It's into 6.
No, chapter 6.
No, it's chapter 6, but division,
Division
whatever it is,
7.
seven,
Division
division
7.
bulkheads. And I had proposed in February to create Division 8, which was, I kind of viewed swimming pools to be as special as bulkheads, so it might deserve its own division, you know? And so, and that's fine if that's what we, I just was wondering what the intent was. There's a little tweak we need to do. There's 6-350 is reserved under Division 7, so we need to, I have a Bridget, if we have like Division 7 bulkheads, at the bottom it says 6-239 through 375 are reserved. If we take up one of those numbers, do we need to rewrite that?
No.
And
I mean, yes, you can. I mean, you can always just add.
But it's funny, so it lives under, it says Division 7, and there's there's hundreds of requirements, and then at the very bottom, it says these numbers are reserved. So we would have to go into Division 7 and grab 6-350 out and use it under Division 8, right? So we have to rearrange the numbering is what I'm saying.
I
I don't know
mean,
what
it's
the
not in
reserve-
front of me. The numbers, I mean, just go to the next greatest number. It's
Well, the
what
problem
you
is, if you do that, it jumps, it reserves 375, and then 376 falls into the completely new, whatever comes after building code.
Oh,
So
So
something
it's more about
totally
easily
new.
finding it once
I
it's
see.
We gotta get it
I
in
see
there.
what you mean.
When it says
I thought-
reserved, is that meant to be reserved for future use?
Yeah.
So you basically take one of those
Yeah,
numbers
and
and
they're-
then just say, all right, we took a number,
Yeah.
now.
They usually
These
come
numbers
up
are
when
reserved.
when you delete something.
Yeah, I noticed
and it
that,
just says,
but
okay,
you go
reserved.
in under those, which I assume is, we're reserving these numbers for future ordinances. So you take whatever number is next, and then you just say, well, that number's gone.
Right.
Now we're using X, Y, Z. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so.
But we
this
can
is-
adjust the placement if you think it goes somewhere else better.
No, 350 is great, but
Okay.
it just needs that reserve numbers need to stop at 349 for Division 7. But they go to 375 now. We stop at 349, and then we grab 350. And then after that, at the bottom of Division 8, 351 through 375 are reserved.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just a bookkeeping
Yeah.
kind of thing. If we want, I think it definitely fits better under Division 8 than bulkheads.
Okay.
Who has problems with this one? Let's start with that.
I do.
Okay.
Why do we let somebody build a pool in their front yard, in their driveway, but not park a boat trailer? Talking about, and I'm coming at it from the parking angle. I'm coming at it from the parking angle, because we have a parking problem on this island, and this exacerbates that. And we get all over people about putting boat trailers in their driveway. And I can't imagine anybody in Tiki Island thinks a boat trailer is unsightly. We're a boating village. So I think that the whole idea behind no boat trailers in your driveway is because you need some parking. And here we are putting pools in driveways, and yes, we have some, but I'm adding more pools in driveways. And that's gonna exacerbate our parking problem. And we have a pretty active community. I, come and go a lot, and there's always people out on the roads walking and biking and pushing strollers and walking dogs. And so that's an angle of this that I wanted to discuss with the board as we consider the options. The other thing is, I'm sure we'll get into it, but how do we prevent above ground pools? I don't mind kiddie pools, but how do we prevent, what in this prevents an Amazon pool from being dropped in your driveway?
Can I
I
make
think
a
it does.
suggestion? So what we need is an ordinance. We need an ordinance. And I had written one back in February. So here was what I figured out. We have a swimming pool code. We don't have any choice, we have it. What we don't have in the code is permitting. It says basically, it's up to the municipality, so we want to permit. We want to know what's going on. So there's 5 things that need to be stated. 2 or 3, I think, are in the existing thing, but one is we need to say that there's a requirement for permitting and permit fees or whatever. The second thing is that we should only adopt, I'm just paraphrasing from something that isn't in it. We need to only adopt technical regulations specific to Tiki Island, like pools built under a house or built near a bulkhead. That makes sense, because I don't know that the international code deals with bulkheads. And not get into design and safety parameters, because there's 100 professionals that wrote that code. Number 3, prohibit on-ground storable pools. Now, that's a tough one, because I guess a rubber or a vinyl inflatable pool might fall under that. So I don't know if we would write does not include kiddie pools, or we say less than 24 inches deep.
Timing, you do it with timing.
How
So
long
you
can?
can put it up for 24 hours.
So we could say.
48, I'll give you 48.
Well, how
72.
about,
I'd give it a week. People come
Well-
down here and spend a week at spring break.
how about
Think
prohibit,
about our island population. How flexible. Yeah.
how about prohibit permanent on-ground pools?
Yeah, but then you got to.
Then you gotta
You
find.
gotta define permanent.
How about,
Above ground pools for more than a week.
Yeah, on ground, we have to keep.
On ground, yeah, on ground, that's fine. We're there.
Whatever, but that's something that needs to be in an ordinance.
Okay, I'm with you.
I don't think we want those pools that have the metal sides.
We all agree.
And the other one that we talked about back in February that's not in here is grandfathering of existing pools and spas. Because the 2018 code has been in place for 2019, it was May of 2019 that the state on our behalf gave us a code that we didn't know we had.
Mhm.
So we were gonna grandfather any pools built during this period. And that was what was discussed earlier. And then, I'm looking at Bridget, are you thinking that one through?
Yeah.
That's kind of a Darrell thing, I believe, too, is whether I'm just saying that's something we talked about. Somebody said, well, what about the pools that are already permitted and already built and all that? So we could grandfather pools already in the ground. And then the last thing, number 5, is civil penalties, which are addressed in the current ordinance. And then for you, location, I am 100% on board with not putting pools and spas in front of the building setback line. And here's what I would say. I've been thinking about this a lot, about pools, LP gas tanks, spas, go on and on and on, whatever. Everybody wants to put stuff in front. What I think that does is it takes the ability of citizens to have any input. It actually takes away our input, the mayor's input, and Darrell's input. If we permanently approve an ordinance that says pools can be in front of the building line, then they just are. You don't even have to talk about it. They just get built. Whereas if I were a citizen and I found out my neighbor was going to build a pool in their driveway, I would use the term, if it affects my quality of life. Loud music, people partying, and I'm just using a worst case scenario. Lots of beer drinking, loud music, visitors coming over, 17, 18 people splashing around in the pool. It would affect my quality of life if my neighbor built that. Admittedly, if they built it behind the line, you could make the same case, but in front of the line is like in your face, you know. So what I would say about that is, at least if we don't give it a blanket approval, citizens could come to the board if they find out that their neighbor's asking to put a pool in front of the line. They could at least come here and make citizen comments about an agenda item and say, I just want the board to know that I'm very much opposed to having an LP gas tank or a pool or a spa or whatever else in front of the building setback line. At least they would have the opportunity to come to the board and express their opinion.
But we've already got a ton of these kind of pools on the island built in front of the house. A lot of homeowners only have so much land. They have no place else to put a pool. And these homes were designed, we've talked about it, really, you know, the pool should be towards the water, but that's not how the houses were built. The houses were built towards the water and all the spaces in front of the house. So I don't know how, Hunter, to your point, I don't know how we can restrict those now because we've got so many of them, and the landowners, homeowners have no other choice. If they're gonna have a pool, that's the only place they can put it. Most people probably don't want it there themselves, but it's the only space they have.
But
Well, what do you say to the guy that lives next door who bought his house when it wasn't legal to have a pool in the front yard? And now he's got a pool in the front yard of his neighbor's house. I mean, he bought his house expecting that there would never be a pool in the driveway next door.
You can't, you buy your house for your property, right? You don't own the property next door.
No, you don't. Agree.
And what those people choose to do, if you can't buy your house assuming that nobody's ever gonna even build onto their house next door. And a lot of people bought their
Right.
properties here, and people went in and basically expanded, did all that. But you're within your legal rights on your property, they're within their legal rights on their property, kind of full stop.
But I think people go places because of consistent rules and consistent government, and this would betray that.
Are we having an issue of people buying houses on Tiki Island because they are pissed off that their neighbor has a pool next door to them? Is this a consistent problem that we're worried enough that we now want to tell people, if you buy a house here, you're not gonna be able to put in a pool.
That's what we told them when we sold them the house.
That's what I think.
That's what we told them when we sold them the house, is it's
That's
not in the law, you can't legally put it.
That's not what the realtors are telling them.
Well, everybody has to read the deed restrictions, and everybody has access to Municode. When you bought your house, there was no promise that you were gonna be able to put a pool there.
But there was also nothing in my deed restrictions, it didn't say I couldn't. In fact, my pool was already there, actually. But there was nothing in the deed restriction for section 11 that said I couldn't put a pool on my property. And if you look actually at the international pool and spa code, nowhere in there anywhere. The only regulation that's in there is distance from your property line. That's it. There's nothing about the build line, there's nothing about nothing. It literally
Okay.
says you have to be 5 feet from your side property lines and 10 feet from your front property line, which for us would be the utility easement.
Mhm.
That's the only specification that code makes on where it goes.
So let me ask Daryl, because you bring up some good points. A year ago, somebody wanted to build a pool in front of the build line. You had the ability to permit it, or did you have to bring it here?
No, it was allowed.
No, it was not legal.
Well, the interpretation that had for years was it's allowed.
So if I dropped in your office and said, man, Tiki looks pretty good, I'm thinking about buying a spot here, but my wife, she gotta have a pool in the front yard. You'd have said, yeah, we're gonna let you do that after you buy the house. Okay. The topic, switching gears, Alan raised the point of grandfathering. Do we even have the authority to grandfather?
I mean, technically, yeah, because unless we're citing them,
I'm thinking about the state
They're all
law in
authorized.
2018. Do we have to enforce that? I mean, if
No,
the
I
state,
mean,
the state law is more restrictive, do we have to enforce the state law?
we can, what we can't do is like retroactively go back and do anything about it if we've permitted it.
Okay.
So you're kind of de facto grandfathering.
Correct.
Yeah.
That was my base when you said
Wait,
add a
should-
provision.
Right.
It's already been done effectively, but I don't have a problem with including it, so.
If that's already the case, then why wouldn't you just say that?
It's a policy call. Policy.
Guarantee I'm not ripping my pool out.
So, my last comment on this is it says the building official to verify and he can write a permit. So if we pass this tonight, he can permit every pool and it does not come to us. And I've got a problem with that.
Where does it say that? Oh, there it is, yeah. Shall field verify.
You wouldn't
pool
permit it if it
equipment
violated
location Before
B.
issuing the permit.
Okay, but if I want to put a pool across the whole front of my house and have no parking, can I do that?
I think if it doesn't violate B,
Right?
I mean, right, Daryl? I mean, as long as it falls within the parameters of what B says, then I think the answer would be yes.
I don't want that.
So, right, isn't that right?
That's correct.
That's right, so I don't want that.
Do we have a separate requirement, ordinance on parking
I
requirement?
don't know.
No,
I
okay.
think that's a Pandora's box there.
But that's, you're using that roundabout logic, that the reason you want to keep people from building pools is because it takes up their parking. But if we don't specify, you must maintain 2 parking spots for your property, then that argument is moot.
So I'm okay with this
What
if we still have authority to approve or deny the pool if it has to come back here.
We sure do. No trailers in front of the building.
Is that a comment or that's a question for you?
It's a comment.
That was your comment.
It was a comment. I just don't want a carte blanche, say,
It's in
go ahead and do it
traffic
everywhere.
Is there an area requirement?
Behind the buildings that
And
trailers
how
have to
big
be
it has to
behind
be?
Because if you buy a spare lot or tear down the house next door to you
Yeah.
and you want to build a great big pool.
Well, it doesn't really matter where the
fine.
house is.
You spend that money.
Setback line is on the
Yeah.
But
survey.
if you want to fill your driveway up with the pool, I got a problem with that.
We have a lot of driveways and pools on there, like a lot.
Maybe you make a parking ordinance.
And I would say to that, a lot of them were built before the island was built out. And before we had as many people here as we do now.
Well, the one
In
I'm
each
just
other's
saying, it's
way.
down for me.
I mean,
it's been the last 3 years.
I would have trouble if somebody came in and wanted to buy a house for $850,000 with the intent of putting a pool in the driveway and found out they couldn't, that they had one on the left and on the right and went across the street.
I hear you there.
You know,
I
mean,
absolutely hear you
I-
there.
That's where I would struggle with it.
Yes.
And if you, and I get your point on taking the whole driveway, how you gonna get to your house if you can't park anywhere? I get that. I don't know, that seems like a whole different can of worms.
But just
I
remember
had
that-
trouble telling them not to if they paid that much money and it's on their property.
This blanket approval doesn't say anything about how wide the pool or how big the pool is, it just says in front of the line, so you're right.
That's
Somebody
right.
could have a pool the width of their house coming out within 10 feet of the street. You drive by and all you'll see is a swimming pool.
So then, to your point, we leave it as is. If they're gonna cross that build line, it has to come here for us to approve.
Yeah. That,
But I can tell you, like we just talked, all the ones in the driveway,
They're all past the building line. A lot of them are.
yeah, but it would come here rather than Daryl approving it, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
That's what
But I'm gonna vote for almost all of them, and Alan just said he's gonna vote against all of them, so.
Right.
Well, and that it brings up another thing. We had a workshop back in February, which I asked for, and we didn't really change anything. But as it states right now, Daryl, clearly, whoever wrote the original Tiki Island World said Daryl can't approve variances. You don't like the word variances, but it says that.
Can?
He says he can't approve variances for anything. Electrical, plumbing, mechanical, it doesn't matter. Daryl can't approve any variances. If it doesn't meet the ordinance, the existing ordinance, he can't approve it. Now, some people, how long you been here? A long time. 20 years ago, they told him, oh, Daryl, go ahead, you know, man, wink, wink, nod, go ahead, tell him to build it, you know. Well, that's not what the law says. Now, and the law also says that all variances must come to this board. And so I tried to kickstart the idea. All of a sudden, we had this proliferation of LP gas tanks everywhere. And Daryl was approving them many times with a pool, LP gas tank and all that in front of the line. And so we never really got beyond that, but unless, you know, I think it's reasonable that it applies like it currently does to all ordinances, all building code ordinances, residential, electrical, plumbing, mechanical. If someone wants to build something that's outside of our building codes, they have to come here to the board and get it approved. And again, another reason being, if it never comes here, the next door neighbor walks out one morning and there's a Walmart pool, or there's a big hole in the ground in the driveway that's a pool, like, my gosh, where'd that come from, you know?
But the Walmart pool can only be there for
At least,
7 days.
this way,
We talked about that.
the citizens have an opportunity to come up here and at least plead their case and say, I really, really don't want my neighbor to build a giant pool with a water slide and all kinds of stuff in their driveway.
But that's their property, and in the International Building Code, in the International Pool and Spa Code.
Well, that's
It
a
never,
separate-
and I bet, and I have a feeling they did that on purpose, because they didn't want to define on somebody's property that they paid for and they own the surface rights on, where they could put that pool, other than in relation to property lines, which is why it was written that way. Hunter, to your point, you could add language to this to say that you do have to maintain a minimum 2-car parking. That you can't basically go in and wipe out all of your parking space on your front to build your giant pool in front of your house. You do have to be able to park 2 vehicles there. So
Which the
your pool-
utility easement would cover that,
Uh,
most of the time.
Some
Most-
driveways, some driveways.
sometimes not always.
Right, there's some you could have a lot of room past
Yeah,
the pool,
yeah.
right? And then some not so much.
Right, like the way the pool works on our house, there is parking both in front and along the side. But if you're worried about not having to put a parking ordinance in, or aggravated if you say, you can go beyond the build line, but you do have to be able to maintain 2 cars seems reasonable for most, and I just made that up.
Maybe within your property line.
Within
Yes.
yeah, literally, not on the street, right? Within
Mhm.
your property line, you have to maintain what would be considered minimum parking.
Mhm.
Probably be for 2 vehicles.
I think it's a good idea.
And most of you guys have big, long trucks, so that has to be big.
So we would allow people to just go ahead and build a pool in front of the building setback line
Correct,
without any approval.
correct.
But then who polices it? Daryl, I guess.
And on the permit,
You-
I mean, they
then
have to put specs in
you're
on the
gonna have to
permit.
tell
Unless you
them
wanna
then.
see them, if you
No.
council says they wanna see them, then they're coming.
Well, I 100% believe that if what the law says is that if it's outside of our ordinances, you can approve, and it should come here. And there are people on this board who apparently are too busy to make these decisions and want it
Alan,
to be
that's
all
not
done
fair.
here.
That's not fair.
Well, why do we
Don't
not
make-
want to bring
No,
LP gas tanks
This
here?
is a
and-
public forum. We are all here to express our
The reason I say that is, well, because Daryl can't approve it. That's why it comes here.
Because it was new.
But the thing of it is, just because we did something wrong for 25 years, do we need to just keep doing it wrong? I mean, otherwise, you know what my point is?
It's
Is
wrong
we-
in your opinion.
No. I'm saying if we need to change his job description, and we need to get rid of whatever it is, 2-9, that says all variances must come to the board. We had a workshop, remember we had a workshop in
We
February?
all remember that one, yes.
Yeah, okay, well,
Talked about
I got poo-pooed in that, everybody told me how stupid I was and what an ignorant, you know what I am? Well, that's one of the reasons I wanted to have the workshop, was to talk about all this, and everybody got mad and walked off. But the deal was, if that's what the village board of aldermen wants to do, is to give Darryl 100% authority to approve things outside our building code, more power to the other four of y'all.
Of the things that we've specified in here that we're already saying, I don't think it's blanket approval for everything. Daryl's not God, no offense. There are things that have to come forward. Part of the point of those workshops and all this stuff we've been doing is for things that are more acceptable, standard of business, quality of life for Tiki, actually enhance, in some cases, our property values. We want to write ordinances that cover that. So doing something like this is not giving him carte blanche on everything. It's not. That's why there are specific ones in here. And if we're adopting the International Pull and Spot Code, as long as they're within 5 feet on the sides, and actually I think it just says 5 feet, doesn't even talk about utility easement. It's within your property lines. State's good. They don't care.
Well, I think, and I hear what you're saying, I think D needs to be crossed through and gone, because what we're doing in there is we're defining things that are clearly spelled out in the code. Everything in there is in the code.
You're talking about fence, the stuff on the fencing.
Yeah, we don't need to be writing detailed technical specs and safety requirements for pools when it's all spelled out in the code.
Is it spelled out in the code that a fence has to be up during construction?
Absolutely, and now, that's another one of my
does, yes.
points. Are y'all ready to go into that? Here's why we need to
It also
adopt,
says we have to
No,
have
it's
locking
not.
gates.
I just asked a
which
question.
we never
well, here's
have.
why we need to adopt the 2021 version. Because the current version of all of our codes is 2024. And I'm not changing, we still need an ordinance. I'm just saying, we have 2018, we should go to 2021, which requires us to do some adopting. One thing it adds is fencing during construction. So we don't need to put that in our ordinance.
I like that.
The other thing it adds, it defines a setback for fences like 24 inches from the water. So if you think about it, if you have the deep end of a pool and you put a fence 6 inches from the water, how do you get out? You might drown. So they define 24 inches or whatever it is. Another thing they have is they changed the clearance between a ladder and the wall of a pool because it was enough of an opening that kids could get their heads stuck in there. So that's 3 reasons why we should adopt 2021. Now, we could go write these things into our ordinance, but then the next time we do a code, we're gonna have to go check and rewrite and do all that stuff. We just simply adopt it. So 2024 is the current code. 2021 is already 3 years old. 2018 is 6 years old. It's 2 revisions outdated. So originally, we were talking about not adopting the
State adopted
latest code.
The state adopted 2018, right?
Yeah.
Is there a provision in the way, this is for you, is there a provision in the way the state adopted the code that said every subsequent update then was automatically adopted?
I don't believe so.
So the state of Texas has not seen the need to go adopt any further resolutions of the code. So why do we have to?
Well, for the 3 reasons I just gave.
No, but for those of you if you wanted, but technically.
What, I
we
mean,
don't
what's wrong
have
with
to.
adopting 2021?
So
Is there something wrong with that?
Alan, we've gone from like a couple months ago, we didn't even know what the 2018 code we were following.
Yeah.
And now you want to jump over the 21 code to go to the
No,
24 code. We need to know about the 18 code.
No, I said 21. I said we should adopt 21.
Say whatever you want. We're moving way too fast here. Like, we just figured out the 18, we're following what the state does. I'm perfectly good with that. I think if we want to come back here and get back where we started on this ordinance, under B location, we can wordsmith this, but if we wanted to add that the property must maintain at least 2 parking spaces within the property lines, I'd be perfectly fine with that. If Hunter agrees. That was his issue, right? And then you have two parking spaces there, right?
And that gives me a tool to limit.
Yeah.
It does.
What
Yeah.
about a pool that goes all the way across the driveway?
Well, I think if
Well, it
you're,
wouldn't be allowed.
You've
you've got to maintain at least 2 parking spaces within the property.
Which
line.
means-
Deep
Within
enough
the
lot,
property
they'd
line.
have, they'd have
But you
enough
can't walk on the
parking.
water to get to your front porch. I mean, you still have to have ingress and
Exactly.
egress from those parking spaces. So by default, if it's a parking space,
Yeah, but just a sidewalk.
true, could be.
That's true, that's
No, but
exactly right.
That's true, but that would be allowed.
But to Hunter's point earlier, that would allow somebody to build a pool all the way across their driveway.
It would, but also allow them to have, they must maintain 2 parking spaces within the
Yeah.
property line on the property. And we don't know where they're gonna be, they could be in front of the pool, beside the pool,
2 parking spots is behind the utility easement?
right? Do we need to say
Behind
behind
the utility
Well,
easement, that makes a big
Yeah,
difference.
you gotta be behind the
So,
utility.
is that a given, or does that need to be mentioned?
No, that's already in there.
That's,
So that's good.
yeah.
So
We
we're
don't,
okay.
our utility easement ordinance restricts anything from being in
That's what I
it.
thought, so. we're fine
Including
with that.
parking a car?
No. No, that's what we're talking about, was parking a car.
So it doesn't include.
Good question.
Well, that 10-foot would get included inside your property line, that's correct, for parking.
Did we capture something that does away with the Amazon pools?
Not yet.
No,
Okay, so then you can capture that. You had several good points. You got down to 5 and we got distracted, but your first few were very good.
Yeah, 3 things. 5, there was like 2 out of the 5 were already in the ordinance.
Yeah. Bridget, would we have to say in here that we follow or adopted the 2018? Do we have to say that anywhere?
No.
No,
Okay.
yeah, that's,
It's a given, I'm just
By
making sure
default.
that it didn't have to be anywhere in here.
But if we wanted to do one of the other ones, we'd have to state
Correct.
that.
Right, I know, that's right.
and those we cannot do here, like that requires public hearing.
Okay, and-
Separate adoption.
And Alan probably knows the answer to this on D safety. Are all these safety provisions already covered in the 2018 code? Is anything here more restricted?
Well, the man-made natural waterways, it doesn't say in the code how deep those are just man-made natural waterways. In other words, I guess we may have some pools that are on the,
That's different. We do, that are right on the,
so we have to go, it says in the code that the fence has to go 18 inches beyond the bulkhead essentially, if you're gonna use this provision as a natural man-made barrier. And it kind of makes sense. It's like some of us we have fences going to the bulkhead so that kids can't crawl around, you extend it out. The code says it has to go out 18 inches past the natural man-made barrier, if you will. So in other words, the fence has to be cantilevered about 18 inches. And that makes sense, because kids walking along the bulkhead could crawl around the fence and get in.
I mean, we have pools on Tiki that's 103, and that, I think the idea of this is basically the canal or the bay, is that your barrier on the site? So if your pool, meaning you don't have to fence your pool, all the way around, basically that your bulkhead and that area, the man-made waterway, basically is the 4th wall, if your pool does that. Otherwise, you'd have to be sure that that's fenced against that the whole way. So it's gonna have to run off your dock or your bulkhead, or you have to stick off your bulkhead. I can't imagine anyone here.
So you're saying you don't agree with the code on the 18 inches?
All it is a side fence sticks over the 18 inches of the waterway, that's it,
Oh,
nothing
yeah,
on
we all
that.
kind of have that.
Yeah, that's what he's saying, it just
18
sticks over
inches
18
into
inches.
the water.
Oh, yeah,
Towards
that's just the side fence.
That's correct,
But
and
what you're
nothing
not
for the back.
proposing is, okay, so let's take the instance of, here's the pool, right? That's the back of the house, it's fenced off in the front, right? But then when you come inside the fence, my fences run down the side as well, and then they do the 18-inch thing so you can't go around it. But I don't have a fence on that side of my pool
No,
that
it's not
prevents it
required.
from going
It's
to.
not-
It's just
Yeah, I'm with you.
extending the side fences 18 inches.
Got it, and we already do that, we're already kind of required.
Well,
to do
It's
that.
not required.
So the question
Okay.
was, so that's not needed in here. There's a section in here about, I'm not, this 6-303.1, that's not in our code, in our ordinances, I don't know. Is that a typo?
Which one?
It says, must be maintained in clean and sanitary condition as referenced in 6-303.1.
Oh, I think that is in, yeah, that's basically like a public health, it can't become a public health concern. It is in there.
There's no 303.1 that I found.
That must be a typo then. I don't know, I'll go.
And 6.303 is actually the fence. But I will say that sanitary conditions and
Yeah.
the code defines that the pool has to be used as a pool, has to be maintained clean, has to be yada, yada, yada. There's hundreds and hundreds of words written to keep your pool clean and functional.
In the 2018?
Yeah, so that means-
Is chain link fence in there?
No, actually,
They add the parking addition within the property line.
It goes on
The
location.
rest of this,
well,
What about the
so you,
on-ground pools? We need to add that, don't we? A restriction.
well, it's in that, if we follow, 2018 doesn't allow it, right? Correct?
It,
No.
I don't think it addresses it.
Or doesn't, it defines it, but doesn't
On
address
ground
it.
pools.
it does allow it, it has a definition
Yeah.
on
It
it.
allows
It allows it.
Yeah.
So we would need to
So-
put that
Allows-
7-day rule or something
Yeah.
in there.
Right, okay.
So, let me see here.
So you guys are wanting to add, like, for above-ground pools as defined in.
On ground.
On ground.
On ground.
What I wrote, it says, on-ground pools as defined in the swimming pool code, chapter 2, are prohibited in the village.
What he said.
Chapter 2 of the code. This is where definitions are. But there's a whole entire section of the code for on-ground pools, which is really blowing me away, but,
But in the international, it doesn't say anything about whether they're allowed or not. Where are you reading?
oh, well, no, they're all about, they love pools.
yeah.
So they're allowed. I'm saying, if we don't want them, we have to take that, we have to say they're not allowed in Tiki.
That's where we were going.
Yes.
So define on, so you have to, define what an on-ground pool is, and then, or on-ground pools as defined in the blah, 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 international, or the 2018 swimming pool
Just
code.
the international swimming
Pool
Just
code,
international code.
swimming pool code of 2018, right?
as adopted.
As adopted,
But not the year.
as adopted.
But don't put the year.
So, as adopted, you're talking, you would allow those on a short-term basis. And we'll have to define a short-term being,
Are only allowed for a continuous period of 7 days is what you wanted?
I made that up, I mean,
Are not allowed more than 7 consecutive days.
Yeah.
7 consecutive days.
Compromise.
I can live with
Hey,
that.
I think it's correct.
Key to successful government.
100%.
I can live with that.
7's enough?
I just like.
It's plenty. The pool's gonna be leaking by then anyway. We all know that.
They can just
And
move it.
that-
And it'll be slimy too.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, and that would be an ad, right? So maybe that.
Basically, there's no permits required, it's just gonna be an ordinance issue. If we have,
Right.
For kiddie
who's
pools,
gonna
yeah.
time them things for 7 days?
You know,
neighbor.
in a lot of these, we don't talk about, we put these ordinances out there, but we don't really talk about, okay, who's the kiddie pool monitor? We're not, it's out there, and then it gets monitored
Well,
like
it
every
gives us
ordinance we've
until
got.
something becomes a nuisance, that's.
Yes.
That's what you're looking for, right?
It's not gonna be the grandkids. It's gonna be the high schoolers that came down for the weekend,
Sure,
the week
and-
of the
and
summer,
we shut
and got
them
a blow-up pool off Amazon. That's gonna be the problem. Anyway, moving on.
So that's gonna be on-ground pools as defined in the International Pool and Spa thing, are allowed only for a period of 7 consecutive days.
Yes.
Okay.
Alan, in definitions, is there any way, so a spa is freestanding? Above,
Like
on
a
ground?
Boy, that's a pickle right there.
On-ground spa?
A mortgage
On-ground
spa,
spa.
mortgage building and
On-ground
spas,
spa.
one of those bad boys.
I'm
right
trying
in
to
the
think,
driveway.
but I think on-ground pool defines as a pool.
It
A
does.
swimming pool.
They have a definition for spas.
No, we don't issue permits for spas either.
Right.
I mean, someone wants to get a hot tub,
Well, I think for electrical.
well, I get electrical
Okay, because
permits.
they have to be bonded.
Yeah.
Cunningham knows that.
Well,
No,
most of
I-
It was a plug-in.
I've got one, I have
It
a
was a
tough
plug-in
spot. We didn't have to permit it.
I think we're beating this a little bit. Let's just
It sits
go.
up
Okay,
Okay.
if you,
So that would become D.
I could run down what I had reviewed here on A, as we were talking earlier, permit requirements are required, but it said, and it just needs to say, generally speaking, you gotta get a permit. This 2 sets of drawings and so forth, that's also defined in the code. And there's a whole section on what drawings are needed, and it has to be well enough to define where the pool is and all that. It's pretty well written. So the permit can just say, permits are required to build a pool or spa in the village of Tiki Island.
Well,
Can
you
I
have
say-
a problem with somebody getting a spa. I mean, is that a permitted item?
Actually, it shouldn't be.
Where are they gonna put it?
I have one basically that sits under my house. It's
And they
a touch
just pop
spa.
up. They're one of those things that somebody just orders it.
Well, according
Mine
to-
doesn't pop up, mine doesn't move.
Let me say this, according to the state of Texas, we have a pool and spa code. Now, permitting is a different issue. The spa itself, I assume, has to be built in accordance with the code.
But some of them are
Safety
not,
They're
but
drop-ins.
they're not built.
They're
Like mine is
prefabs.
not built.
No,
Mine
I'm
is a
talking
touch spa.
about
Mine's portable.
The spa has to meet the code, I'm assuming.
Yeah, they
And
build-
if we've adopted the
They
code,
bring it
we've
in,
done that.
and we're saying, if we don't say we need a permit, so the permit
All
Just
pools
needs to
require a
say
permit from the village of Tiki Island.
pools, and I'm just saying that we don't really have to go into a bunch of stuff about drawings and stuff, because it clearly, it tells you in there in the code.
Okay, can I
a lot
interrupt
of
on that
stuff.
point? If somebody's gonna come and wanna build a pool and they hire a pool contractor, I would assume he's gonna go to the village of Tiki Island and pull out our ordinances and look at it. And this is a one-page, pretty simple thing to say that if you want a permit, right, it requires a permit from the village, and you're gonna have to have two sets of drawings to scale all of it. I think I would rather them see it there, right in their face, nice and easy, and not try to dig through the 2018 code to find those requirements.
Well,
I
it
think
can
that
be
we're
di-
going too far.
You're talking about the
by referencing
drawings.
that.
The
I think
drawing
he would,
requirement.
whatever he would require, so for somebody to
That's
build a pool would be right here in front of them, right? So there's no reason not to put that in there, is there?
No.
We want to make it as easy as we can for somebody to know what was
Well,
required.
I will say though, that anybody that builds a spa or pool has to know the as adopted, what's called as adopted,
It's on
international.
the application,
That's
must
on
meet
the, that's on the
codes.
application.
Yeah,
Must meet
so
codes,
is
that's a
it-
code we adopted, it does.
I would say, now, I'm assuming
think A is
swimming pool
fine.
guys know
My
that.
point. I think A is
So
really
anyway,
fine.
location, we didn't ever decide on that.
We did, we
We
said
did.
we were gonna keep it as is, what's getting added to this, right? Because in the international code, it says, as long as you're 5 feet from your property line and
Side lot lines.
side lot lines, actually, it says, it says property lines, and then it defines distance side versus front.
What about in front of the 20-foot building?
There is no provision in the internet, if they do not care.
No, just, are we gonna leave this in here or not?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Patty, I added the property must maintain at least that part right after that.
Two
sentence,
parking
The 20-foot
spaces.
building lot, 20-foot build line, but cannot place in any utility easement. Then I thought maybe parking would go right after that, right? Because
Okay, that's a good idea.
that's kind of the part of the property you're talking about.
yep,
And so the last sentence in location is actually covered in 44-32 in zoning about, we need to actually, it says you can't, zoning is where it says you can't build stuff on an empty lot. This is saying they have to be platted together, but it goes without saying that if you can't build something like a boathouse or a boat dock on an empty lot, we need to add swimming pools to that ordinance.
But it doesn't hurt to have it here so that somebody can easily know when they look at this that they can't do that. I mean, there's no reason not to have it in here.
We've been enforcing that along for a while.
yeah, that's why I replied.
What I, everybody has different, what I'm trying to get away from is writing hundreds and hundreds of little statements that when the zoning ordinance changes, where are the 17 places that we mentioned replatting of lots, rather than having it all go back to zoning, but that's fine. Subcontractors, I don't think that's even needed because in 6-108, we tell the contractors they have to be licensed, they have to register with the village.
So you want to strike that?
So that's not even needed. Safety, we talked about is,
We're striking that.
Well, hold on, I mean,
Yeah, keep on.
isn't this where we want a contractor to come to kind of get a one-page overview of what's required to build a pool here? I mean, do we want them hopping around to every ordinance to try to figure out what they need to do? I'm asking general question, like to
So
me.
couldn't Daryl prepare that outside of this meeting?
He
for
could,
the
well, he
contractors?
could, but I mean, I was supposed to.
A cheat sheet.
Yeah, this kind of works like a cheat sheet right now,
Well-
unless we keep stripping things out of it, then I think it's not a cheat sheet anymore.
the permit has a lot of stuff on it though.
Yeah.
This is kind of some of the stuff that's on the permit
Okay.
application.
So Daryl, does it need to be on here?
We're
I
asking your
don't,
opinion.
you know, I think it's fine. I would leave it. You know, it's just information. If the pool company goes in and reads your ordinance, pools,
Right.
they're gonna try to absorb the information they need to obtain a permit.
That's how I would look at it. That
Well,
was
then,
my-
at the very top, we better put right in there that it must meet, or did you already put that in there? It must meet all conditions of the International Pool and Spa Code.
I can do that. For the permits.
Then
Yeah,
under-
so Ellen, who would be my suggestion, I guess good, under permit required after the last, the building shall verify the pool before you use the pool, it could be,
Yeah, but, and then Daryl, you said that's on our permit, it doesn't say pool and spa code, does it? It just says it must meet all applicable codes or whatever.
I'm looking at it here, and I've written a note on that. I don't see where it references the pool code here. And I've got a little problem adding that we have to comply with the pool code to this tonight in a rush to do it when I haven't read the pool code.
yeah.
No, I'm not, I'm talking about that's a future thing that could be done.
Right.
But it's a given that you were saying we needed a quick one-page sheet. I would add on to this quick one-page ordinance that they must meet the code.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't
So on the
know, I agree with
front,
that.
I literally can picture some guy driving across that bridge, building a pool that doesn't even know how to spell International Pool and Spa Code. I'm not-
Sure.
so on the
Casting
permits,
for-
permit requirements, I have added a sentence, after the building official shall field verify the pool and pool equipment location before issuing the permit, must meet all requirements of the International Pool Code.
I'm not gonna vote for it if we add that, because I haven't read that. I don't know what I'm signing up for.
Okay.
I can read it next week and we can have another meeting about it, but I can't vote for it if we just gave a big blanket statement and I don't know what's in
I
that.
hear you. So is it a non-starter? I'm asking a question, is it a non-starter to get this approved if we leave that out?
Are we held accountable to that code today? Are we?
2018 international?
We are.
Yeah, that's already
Whether we-
applicable.
It's already.
So
It's already in effect.
Since 2019.
So
Accountable.
Bridget,
But
we
accountable
don't, we
today.
don't actually even need that
Like,
change.
we're accountable.
We're already-
You don't have to, but
Okay.
if you want it to be a cheat sheet, it might be,
That's the road.
then you're gonna have to, anytime you update it, you're gonna have to come fix it.
Yeah, but that could be, if it's not in this, and Hunter, that's a good point, I don't like approving things I haven't read yet.
I agree, I'm just
I
saying, I
think-
think we're.
That basically
If it's
just-
an
It can never be a
requirement, you
combination.
need- It should say that.
But that literally should be, that's the conversation with, when somebody pulls a pool permit, for Daryl to say, you do have to meet the Texas's
International.
code, which is the International Pool Code. Full stop.
Okay.
And if this is a cheat sheet, it should say it on there.
Yeah. we
Well,
have
right,
to
but
do-
what
We
I'm
can always
trying,
go back and change it.
where I'm trying to get is, in order to prove this tonight, we can leave that off. Our legal counsel is telling us, we have adopted that already, which
Yeah.
says people have to meet that, so that's a non-starter, which swimming pool people should know, but if they don't, at the time they pull the permit, it's very easy to say, you have to meet Texas's state-adopted international pool code.
Yeah.
Stop. And then, we're good.
Okay?
Does that work for you?
Yep.
Does that work
And
for you,
E is-
Alan?
Yeah.
And Bridget, we're good
Yeah.
with that, right?
I mean,
Okay.
my preference would be actually to put it on the permit, actual permit.
I
It
agree.
says-
Yeah,
We
they
can get that
sign.
done.
And it
I
doesn't say
agree.
2018, it just says
Yeah.
international.
Yeah.
That's a
I agree.
procedural item.
That
As
would
far
be-
as approval, the actual words written here are 100% in that code we've been talking about. There's multiple inspections on electrical and all kinds of stuff.
But it doesn't hurt to leave it here.
Okay. And then civil penalties, Bridget, it says for violations of this ordinance. Can you be generic like that?
Yeah, it's under this section.
What if somebody just is bound and determined not to build something according to the International Pool and Spa Code? Is that a civil penalty? Okay.
Well, if they don't, they're not gonna get a permit.
No, I'm talking about after they're building it. Daryl says, hey, you gotta have a big filter thing over here. No, I refuse to do that. I'm not gonna do it. Then
Yeah.
Is that a civil penalty? Is that $1,000 a day
So
until you put
you
that
don't get a
in?
permit, if you
No, we've
build it,
already got
we'll
the
find
permit. No, we just had this deal with
Right.
a railway, where we wrote the permit
Yeah.
and they didn't follow the code when they built it, and they said, we're not changing.
So wouldn't that be
That's
similar
what
to?
Alan's talking about here. Can we find the guy that says, no, I'm not changing?
Okay, so
So
that's,
that'd be a
And
civil
Bridget said we
penalty.
can, so we're good.
so we're good. Okay, Shall I summarize?
The real leverage on building anything is shutting it down.
Should,
Shall I sum up?
Just being honest.
please.
Princess Bride?
All right, please.
Let me explain. No, let me sum up. Okay, so 6.350, the first paragraph stays the same. Under A, permit requirements, it says all pools require a permit from the village. Right, so we struck in spa. On location, those words stay the same, but we're adding pools and spas may be placed past the build line but cannot be placed in a utility easement. Property must maintain 2 parking spaces, and then the rest of the verbiage. C stays the same, we struck D. Oh, no, we have a new D. The new D is that, let's see, on ground, I got it.
C goes away.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
no
yeah,
topic
that's right,
there.
my bad. C goes away, so the new C is on-ground pools as defined in the International Swimming Code, as adopted in the International Swimming Code, are allowed for a period of 7 consecutive days only. Right, okay, got that. E stays the same, F stays the same, except it'll now go A, B, this is the new C, there is no D, so E becomes D, and F becomes E.
Good job.
Thank you, Pat.
Good? Okay. somebody
Motion
made
to
that.
approve what Patty just read.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No, and I'm saying this only because of in front of the bill line.
Yep.
I'm a no on that, I'm a hard no.
Okay,
All right, so the motion passes. Okay, now we're gonna go to E. We're bringing up E now. And since y'all passed, hold a minute, since y'all passed K, E is no longer.
Are there any other issues with that? That would be,
They've got plenty of
Well,
parking.
there's some drainage issues that we're gonna
only
resolve.
for the, what was
Okay,
the actual?
is this Lattimore?
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's pretty
It's
prescriptive.
just beyond the
It
building?
is beyond the building.
It's behind the
Well, so
utility.
Bridget, do we need to take action on that now that we have a new ordinance?
It complies with what we just adopted?
Yes.
No.
okay.
Well, two parking
Yeah,
places.
They've got
they're
plenty
only
of
using half their driveway.
Are they here tonight? I don't know. That's you. Oh, that's
So
That's no longer an issue.
let's do this.
You know, you gotta fix the law.
Let's actually do a motion for this permit to be considered under the ordinance as amended, because technically it was submitted when another ordinance was acted, so I think we need to, if that's
Go
what
ahead.
you
Yeah,
want,
go ahead.
because technically.
Go ahead, Steve.
I move that we approve item E based on the ordinance we just approved.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. No. One no.
You
All
get
right.
It only took 2.5 hours.
Okay, let's go to the, Item L.
Dropping down now, that's
L.
to
L.
Yeah.
Discuss the possible action to approve ordering delineation survey for Survey A on Hawaii.
Well, somebody else make a motion to discuss. Oh, motion to
Motion to
discuss,
discuss.
but I'm the, okay, so this is, the point of the delineation survey is our 2 reserve areas are the only, kind of the remaining public space that we have. We need to have a legal document that shows what is protected wetlands and what is not before we would consider any improvements on any of those spaces. So this would be essentially having taken budget money, something that's not budgeted, but actually getting those surveys done. I would suggest we do both reserves, because if they're already out here, why wouldn't we
Yeah.
have them just do both?
Yep.
How much
And-
money?
Do what?
How much money are we talking about?
I don't know, we have to go get, this is basically saying we want to do this, and then we'll go get quotes, because we're going to go out and get quotes, but it's like, well, first
So
we
you're gonna
want
have
to
a
make sure
discussion on it.
that we have a discussion before we do that.
I support it. I agree.
And this
Good
would
idea.
tell us what the Corps of Engineers and all that, all their
We-
restrictions.
We would have, they'd come out, they'd survey, they'd plat, they'd go in, and we then basically have a legal document that says, here's what is protected, do not pass go, don't touch it, don't do anything. Here's what is developable space, and then between the city, Tika, and potentially Garden Club, we can talk about improvements that could go there for the benefit of the community. Use those spaces. So
It also helps
get
us
people
with-
out of the walking path, put a walking path out there, yeah,
Also helps with hurricane cleanup.
absolutely, because then we know,
Works in the bill.
okay?
So you will have to come back when you got quotes or
We'll have to come
something?
back to get authorization for the money, but this says, yes, go
Yeah.
ahead and do that, get it moving, and then come back and tell us we'll probably have to have, we'll have multiple people potentially that say they can do it. Okay, do we have to,
No, you don't have to do nothing,
Okay.
it's just discussion on it.
all right, that was the discussion.
Okay, M, discuss the possible action to approve Shirley and Sons Pay App number 5 for $401,493.76 for the completion of the breakwater. Motion to discuss.
I just was gonna, so that it is what it is, that's final payment, that completely pays off. Everybody is paid off on that project except for one $18,000 some odd dollar payment to Atkins, which is the engineering firm. So at the end of the day, right now, out of $8 million, we've got about 650,000, minus 18 in a few weeks, funds that are not spent. So those combined with a few dollars in 2016, and what's the other one, 2012, 2011? There's just
Just the 200,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, there's another couple $100,000, so say 750 to 800,000 maybe. No, more like 900,000. So what the plan is to basically give that back to the citizens, but by way of a tax rate decrease over a couple of years. Ray DeLoso was the one who proposed that more than a year ago.
Yeah.
Great.
Not just
Talking about it.
not just dump it all in 1 year, but spread it out over 3 years. Because, and I'll tell you his justification for that, which I thought was good, interesting. People are buying and selling all the time. So if you take all this pretty large sum of money and you dump it on the tax rate this year, the person who just bought their home or just sold their home or whatever,
Yeah.
they get this big tax break and then they leave or they come in. So Ray was saying we ought to spread it out over 3 or 4 years and kind of distribute it among multiple people buying and selling homes here.
I'm good with that philosophy.
So anyway, that's just for information, is pretty good bit of money that we're gonna be giving back to the.
Golden, we need
Okay,
a
so this
motion to
is for
approve
the,
this.
do what?
Yeah.
We need a motion to approve
I
this.
need a motion to approve Shirley and Sons Pay application.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Number 8, citizen comments. Please state your name. Comments limited to 2 minutes.
Oh,
Go ahead, Martin.
well, first I have a question, if I may, and then bring my other. Since you have approved this change in the swimming pool locations, the law requires that a fence be built, as was commented on, around the pool. So now there's a fence going further out beyond the build line. If you have a swimming pool, do we provide that same?
Fences are allowed beyond the build line, beyond the build line.
You would have to, if the pool gets out there.
Well, the fences are approved to be built out there already.
Already.
Okay, then maybe, I guess my neighborhood's different.
Right. You're
My
looking at
neighborhood doesn't
road.
allow it.
Yeah.
Okay, that answered my question.
Utility easement.
Yeah, as long as it's behind me.
But, and one of the.
And there's leniencies there already.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We don't need to discuss
We can't discuss this, that's right.
Any other
My
citizen
question had to do, since you're talking about ordinances, it's a good segue. This whole ordinance discussions and arguments have been going on for almost 2 years now with this body, and making serious progress now. But back in the beginning of it, one of the first ones that was discussed and dealt with seriously was the sign ordinance. And I'm kind of, I'll go straight to concerned that we've gone downhill rather than uphill on the enforcement of the sign ordinance. We talked a good talk in this body, but we have a rather specific sign ordinance presently, and we've got some huge violations of it. I was riding around on, a few weekends ago, on Isles End, and there's a realtor's got a 10-foot banner, 2.5 feet high, on the side of a building up in the air. Left it there for 3 weeks, that their house was for sale.
Why'd you call me?
I wanted to know what the procedure was, because we all drive by it at Isles End, and there it was. Not a realtor, not one of the local realtors. This is someone I'm coming in, doesn't know what's going on, and so forth. But there's this one. You know, we've got a house that's just been moved. We've got a big sign on the side of that house. It's more than 8 square feet, and it's more than 4 feet above the ground. It's up in the air. It's been up there for 3 weeks, I guess.
Since the
And
house.
I'll drive by on Tiki Drive.
Thank you for noticing, I'll ask them to remove it. I mean, this is simple stuff.
But I think the worst one is I take care of an old friend who's well up in years, and I go down Bora Bora, to the end of Bora Bora, and there's a beautiful home being built there. But that home has got more violations of the sign ordinance than you can imagine. We're allowed to have one sign 6 feet, the builder had one sign 6 feet, from the street. And in front of that, there's a subcontractor sign. There are 4 other signs that say no trespassing, private property, don't dump here, this, that, and the other thing. And the front of the building has been converted to one big sign. There are 8 4x8 sheets of plywood with spray paint saying private property, keep out, no trespassing, and all this type of thing, and we approve that. I mean, it looks like the summer of love when you go to that job site. It's absolutely trash. Now, I've got a friend, an elderly friend, that lives immediately next door to that. And he doesn't get here very often, but he's a big benefactor to this island. I think he should be able to come here and enjoy his property. We talk about quality of life, of a swimming pool in the front. This thing is an absolute dump.
Thank you for that.
And
It'll be
do we have an
corrected
ordinance?
tomorrow.
So, and what do we do when we have them?
Call him.
Do we address that with you?
Yeah.
Is that, okay.
You call
I
into the
didn't know the
building department.
procedure.
Call into the building department.
Okay. Well, you've probably seen that one down there. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Thank you, because I think a lot of us have looked at those and went right over our heads that they were violations, like this one down here.
Fortunately, we don't live we don't all live next door to those things.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Steve?
Earlier, he mentioned about the bridge. 10-yard concrete truck is 4 tons over that bridge, just so you know. You're looking at 8 yards, just under 8 yards to get at the 68,000 pounds. So.
58 or 68?
An empty 3-axle truck is 36,000 pounds. The yard of concrete is 4,050 yards, 4,050 pounds. So you're at 76,000 pounds.
Gerald, I thought you had that with the concrete company.
Well, thank you for bringing
Well,
that
that's,
up.
it just takes a phone call.
We have loads of
Actually,
tickets, I'll just check loads.
actually, it's probably,
And then there's different styles of trucks and stuff too, Steve.
that's something that I think Adrian and them could probably do. It's just, you don't have to sit up there at the bridge and stop every truck, just a spot
Yeah, the
check.
police department's more welcome to
Yeah,
stop
they-
and ask for.
Sorry, Adrian, but, but just a spot check once in a while.
Yeah,
Once
like
they figure
your
out to
neighbor
watch
had
it,
something to
they'll, yeah, because basically what you're fixing to spend $90,000 to repair this right here by my house. I guarantee, I know for a fact that road was damaged when they built those 2 houses there. So it's not just a bridge, it's our concrete streets with these overweight trucks on, so.
Cubic yard of concrete, he's right, weighs 3,600 to 4,050 pounds, depending on the mix. 1.8 to 2 tons per yard, for a yard of concrete.
And I verified the way that my neighbor next door to me, when we were discussing this a couple of years ago with the bridge, he is a vice president of purchasing for some of the largest batch plants in southeast Texas, Louisiana. He buys concrete trucks for a living, so that's what, he said, no, that's the way on it. If you go to a Mack chassis, it's even more. If you go to a 5-axle truck, it's even more than that, so we are overweighting those trucks, overweighting that bridge at 10 yards, so.
So it weighs 36 to 4,000, depending on mix.
To me, that's a traffic violation if you violate that sign.
All right, thank you for the comment. Any other comment?
And one more thing, Noel, I asked 2 months ago, and this may sound petty to y'all, but we spent $20,000 on the city's secretary up there, assistant, that's still sitting in an empty office. When she's off on vacation like she was last week, and on Fridays when she's off, why are we paying that woman to sit there and do nothing? That's something, you can't comment, that's something that's on probably y'all too, because she works for y'all. So, that's ridiculous, I'm sorry, but we paid that woman, we could have put that towards a new sign out here or something. 20 grand for that, woman to sit up there and do nothing. Nothing against her, she's a nice lady, but,
Okay.
next time you do that, I'll fill out that.
Thank you for the comment. Any other comment?
Motion to adjourn.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Sorry, yes.
Second.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.